Hello, everyone, and good evening. It is good, as always, to see all of you here. Yes, welcome people in the chat. Apa says, interesting. Well, I hope the stream is interesting. It is a bit of an unusual stream topic for me today. I'll be saying more in a moment about why we're talking about this today in particular. I am excited to know that there's a Karis Euphonor raid. So I know you're probably not watching this now, Karis. I understand you're probably asleep, but thank you all the same for the very kind raid. Also, Zero, welcome. Sends his regards and he's asleep. And Robo, good to see you as well. By the way, chat, I have a bit of an unusual BGM for today's stream. It's one I haven't used before. If it's too loud or too quiet, let me know. I think I have it set to a good level, but can always change it if need be. Rip Karis. What, did he die or something? Oh wait, I see. It's in the using rip in the gamer sense of rip, like when they're taken out of the current stream or game or activity. Yes, in that sense, very much. Rest in peace, Karis. Tia, also welcome. Tia says, last year I was looking up advice on improving social skills and noticed the people providing it tended to be well-mannered white men. It had crossed my mind that you suit this profile. Thanks. Well, it is true. I am a white man, and apparently I'm well-mannered too. I always hesitate to be the judge of that myself, but since I have your confirmation of it, Tia, thank you for letting me know that. Rest in peace. I meant like sweet dreams. Oh, okay. That's right. Yes, Karis has many wonderful years left ahead of us. And very fortunate we all are to have him with us. But yeah, that's an interesting note, Tia. I'm not sure if I've thought about the demographic profiles of people who give advice on social skills, but if they're mostly white men, then I suppose I'm in good company. So chat, as I was saying a few moments ago, this is a bit of an unusual stream topic for me, and in true philosopher's fashion, I am going to begin with definitions. I know. You're probably thinking right now, Axaeon, that sounds boring, but trust me, it'll be pretty painless. All I want to ask at this starting point is just, what even are social skills? Because you might be wondering that, and I think it's a fair question. I know for me, at least, when I think about skills and what it means to be skilled in something, the first examples that I think of are things like being skilled at playing a sport, or being skilled at operating a certain piece of heavy machinery. Skills that are very mechanical in nature. Social skills, though, it feels to me a little more nebulous when I ask, okay, like what is it to be socially skilled in something? And the best attempt at a definition that I can come up with is one that I'll share with you now. I like to think of social skills as ways of interacting with others that are likely to reduce misunderstandings and tension and lead to deeper or more satisfying relationships. As it seems to me that all social skills can fall under this umbrella of ways of relating to others or interacting with others that are going to make misunderstandings, tensions, conflicts less likely to arise, and that are also going to improve your relationships, the quality of your relationships with others. I didn't think you'd do it. I'm glad to be proven wrong, though. Social skills have come a long way over the last several years, but I'm sure I have room for improvement, so I'm excited for this. Well, thank you for sharing that, Tia. Yeah, ultimately, I think we all have room for improvement in our social skills, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this stream. I have a little more to say about that later. So, Apa, I know you say, buh definitions, boo. I can't tell if that's buh, like butt definitions, or boo definitions, but you'll be happy to know, Apa, that is the only definition, really, that I'm offering this stream. See, that wasn't so bad. Now, a further question you might be wondering here at the outset is, okay, like if that's how we're thinking of social skills, it's these, ways of interacting with others that reduce misunderstandings, tensions, lead to deeper relationships, like why bother with them? What is the point of social skills? And in particular, just to put a finer point on that question, I think something that one could wonder, and be reasonable in wondering, is shouldn't you just be yourself? Like, isn't that the goal that is often extolled to us? The goal of just being authentic, being true to your own nature, and like, why bother with trying to have, social finesse in your interactions? Is authenticity superior? Now, one thing I would like to say about this is that, of course, it is good to be authentic. I don't think anyone is denying that. And so when I think of counseling someone to have good social skills, I think that that can be done in a way that does not suggest that they should be inauthentic, that they should try to put up a facade. But what social skills properly understood do, in my view, is help you be the best version of yourself. So not to be someone else, but the best version of you. And that's because when you have good social skills, your words and your actions will be understood in the way that you mean for them to be understood. And you won't, for example, come across as rude where the rudeness is unintentional, because that can all too easily happen if somebody has poor social skills. They might do something without realizing that it's rude, and so there's going to be a disconnect between what you are thinking and feeling on the inside and how your actions are coming across to others. And I think what social skills do is they eliminate that disconnect. They help ensure that how you were thinking and feeling on the inside is coming across accurately to others. And that is going to help you to relate to others in deeper ways and more satisfying ways, and to make for less tension and conflict in your relationships. I didn't realize Axaeon had social skills. I know. It is surprising, but over my years, I have developed a social skill or two. I'm going to use them as a countdown now. Yes, one single social skill, 2 social skills. Or at least I like to think that I have. We'll see with the advice that I give in a moment that I touch on. I'll let you all be the judge of whether it's good advice or whether it will plunge you even deeper into social despair, because that is always a possibility. According to the YouTube censors, I should be myself. Oh, did your comment get censored? Might have to switch to live chat. But yeah, sometimes the YouTube censors can, I suppose, imply that you shouldn't be yourself. Like if you spend some time writing out a comment that you put your heart into, and then suddenly YouTube censors it for whatever reason, who knows why, then it can seem like YouTube is counseling us not to be ourselves, which I know can be a sad and discouraging thing. It is sad to see one's comments disappear into the void. But let's face it, by nerd standards, his social skills are legendary. I don't know if I should take that as like a wonderful, tremendous compliment to you, or just especially by nerd standards. Like, just how low are nerd standards relative to regular standards for social skills? I suppose it all depends on that. But in any case, I will take it as a compliment. Now, the thing about social skills is that why they matter, I think, can be inferred from what I've said already, but just to draw it out a little more explicitly, here's how I like to think of it. Getting practically anywhere in life, succeeding in your goals, whether it's for career or for just about anything else, requires working with people. In almost every case, you're not going to be someone who is fully self-sufficient. You might be able to approach that if you are a hermit and just live out in the woods and never interact with anyone. But if you're a person who is living amongst other people and living in society in the way that most people do, that is going to require interacting with and working productively with other individuals. And if you want to do this effectively, then you are going to need to act in ways that avoid triggering misunderstandings. You're going to need to be the kind of person who does not create needless tension in your relationships. That is going to help you reach your goals much more smoothly. in your career and everywhere else in your life. But also for a deeper reason, satisfying relationships surely matter. Like, it's a good thing to have close friendships and close romantic relationships and relationships of that kind where we can be authentic, but also not act in ways that trigger misunderstandings or that make things tense or that lead to needless conflict. And social skills can help with that. So to me, these are two of the major reasons why social skills are worth learning, worth thinking about. Now, of course, all of that doesn't quite answer the question that some of you might have been wondering, which is, why am I doing a stream on this? There are lots of important things out there that I don't do streams on. And I haven't done a stream on this topic before. Most of my streams have been about areas of philosophy, with some gaming streams. So you might be wondering, what's the deal, Axaeon? Why talk about social skills here on stream? And the answer to that is that this might be a bit of a surprise, I know, but there is a perception out there that people in this sphere, people who are VTuber watchers, who are anime fans, people in that ballpark, can occasionally have a little trouble when it comes to social skills. And I know, it's far be it from me to imply that that perception is true. So I'm not saying that this is true, just that this is a perception, a stereotype that is out there. And it does seem to me fair to say that there are at least some, in the philosopher's sense of some, there is at least one VTuber watcher and anime fan out there somewhere in the world who could use a little help when it comes to social skills. We'll just leave it at that, making a very modest claim here. And so I hope that this stream might find that one person, or those few people, if in the event that it is multiple people. So yes, chat, the perception of perhaps insufficiently developed or not perfectly developed social skills among VTuber fans and anime watchers might or might not be overblown. But in any case, I think social skills really are the kind of thing that just about everyone could improve in. No matter how good you are socially, there's always room for even further improvement. And I know that's true in my case. I could improve plenty when it comes to social skills. And so regardless of where you are on the social skills spectrum, my hope is that in this stream there will be something that you can find useful to your circumstances. Now, when it comes to anime fans and VTuber watchers in particular, and here I see some people in the chat saying, yeah, no lies detected. Hi, I'm such a person. Oh, hi, Nikon, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Are you implying that your viewers lack social skills? Yeah, well, it seems there's a bit of, at least some agreement in the chat about this area. But for those who are in this camp and who do feel as if perhaps their social skills could use some work, I figure what better way to have a VTuber teach social skills. And in my case, I should mention, I am both the most and least qualified VTuber to be teaching this, by the way. I'm the least qualified because, let's face it, chat, I have to just come clean about this. I've had some really awkward moments in my life, and I still have them sometimes. Like, sometimes I can still be a little shy, it happens. And if you could see some of my most awkward moments, you'd probably be thinking, like, what? This guy is trying to teach social skills? Like, what even is going on right now? But here's the thing. Here's where it gets interesting. I think in some ways I am the most qualified because I have generally learned from those awkward moments. I think that I've become better at social skills over the years. And I'm glad to share whatever I have learned, however much or however little it might be. So that is what I'm going to attempt to do in this stream. Also, speaking of social skills, I want to exercise good social skills now by making sure I don't miss too many comments in the chat. Tia, you said earlier, also, I like that even in a non-philosophical stream, you're starting off with objections. It's true. My philosopher coding, the philosopher's blood, runs so deep in my veins. Even in a social skills stream, I cannot get away from it. Take it as you will. I love you, Rex. Oh, thank you, Tia. That's very nice of you. Yes, I think that your comment about the nerd standards and legendary social skills, that does mean a lot. Nice to see you acknowledge this. They say it's who you know, not what you know. Yeah, I think that that's in a very important sense true when it comes to social skills. Some of the best ways we can learn are from people that we know. Like if we are around people who have very good social skills, they can sort of serve as a model for us. Absolutely no doubt about that. Now, Robo, you've asked a good question here. Is personal hygiene a kind of social skill? Like being smelly can be pretty off-putting in social settings. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like no matter how good you are at conversation, if you go into an interaction and you have just immense body odor such that the other person is thinking like, ew, what is this? Like, did this person take a shower today? Did they take a shower last week, last month, last year? There's pretty much no way you're going to get past that. Like no matter how effective you are at asking funny questions or being humorous, being insightful in conversation. So yeah, I think personal hygiene is kind of a minimum, like the bare minimum, you might say, for having good social skills, making a good impression on someone. So yeah, I would agree with that. Those who cannot do, teach. I suppose so. Although I wonder in the case of social skills, what would it mean to do? I guess it would mean like having good interactions, being like a cool person. And if you can't do that, maybe you can still teach social skills. Perhaps that's the position I'm in for all I know. Does that not make you more qualified that you strove to learn from them? Yeah, I'd like to think it does. We'll see in a moment how qualified I actually am. Making eye contact with a stranger is peak social skills. Please maintain eye contact for 5 seconds. Yeah, being able to maintain eye contact, that's a good point, Ice Cubes. That can certainly be important. 5 seconds with a stranger would seem kind of long to me, though maybe that's part of the joke. Like usually when a stranger makes eye contact with me, I just immediately look away. That's one of the areas where perhaps I could improve a little bit in my social skills. If I'm talking with someone, though, I think I'm pretty good at keeping up a decent amount of eye contact. Now, chat, just in the recognition that I do not know all there is to know about social skills, I was thinking that for today's stream, I might make ample use of a guide, someone who has written a book, some would say the book on social skills. And some of you are probably already thinking of it now. And that book is the classic Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Written in the 1930s, I believe. I know it says over 70 years in print here, but I'm pretty sure this version of the book that I have on the board is itself a kind of older edition. And many would say that its precepts stand the test of time, that this is timeless advice for being good in social situations. And so today we are going to look at some of the key principles from this book. Oh God, that's right, Terraditto, we are going there. Also, welcome, Terraditto. Oh dear. Why are people saying, oh God, and oh dear? Do people not like Dale Carnegie that much? Trust me, by the end of the stream, you might like him a bit more. Maybe. Or maybe you'll dislike him even more. Who knows? Robo says, for you in social skills, I think it's more, it didn't come naturally, so you had to learn, thus making you good at teaching. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good clarification to the way that that works. Yeah, people who have trouble with something naturally, they understand what it's like to be a beginner at that, and in some cases can teach it even more effectively than someone who might just never have had trouble with it in the first place. The reactions are concerning. Yeah, I know, Blue Ice Cubes. What's with these reactions? If I remember correctly, I read half of it and made my personality when I was like 13. Okay. So maybe you're already ahead of the game, Apa. Now, I will admit, I have not read the entire book, but trust me, chat, I have skimmed it. I did so especially for this stream. So I think I know what I'm talking about with this book. And I can tell you there are two fundamental sort of overarching principles that Carnegie uses in this book. And I think lots of the advice from this book can be put under the umbrella of one of these two principles. One of them is to generally refrain from being critical of people that you're interacting with. So refrain from voicing criticisms of the people that you are talking to. I'll be going into more detail on that a bit later, on exactly what that entails. Now, a second major principle, which again, I'm not going to talk about in detail right now, but just kind of laying this out as a roadmap, is to make people feel appreciated, to make them feel important. I think that is the second major sort of umbrella principle that Carnegie appeals to. In chat, also, there is something exciting that I have to share with you, namely a surprise principle, a surprise third principle. As far as I know, this principle is not in Carnegie's book, but it is one that I have gleaned from my own experience that I'll be sharing near the end of the stream. So that one will be a mystery right up to the moment that I introduce it. I read this book, but I think it was more helpful for me to learn by example from people I knew. Yeah, and I can see how that would be true, that learning by example is perhaps the best way of learning social skills. And for people who might not have many examples, maybe a book like this can be somewhat of a stopgap. But yeah, I think, and possibly even Carnegie would agree, that maybe the best way is to just learn by example. Like, that seems pretty plausible to me. I remember that one ironically worked wonders. Yeah, I would say if you're the kind of person who doesn't do these things, or at one point did not do these things, but then you suddenly start changing the way you interact with others, these can make a huge difference. Also, I kind of wish I could see a glimpse of young awkward Axe. Sounds cute. You might wish that now, Tia, but I don't know. If you actually saw me in some of those moments, you might just think, wow, this is really awkward. I was social as a kid, but being a snitch ruined my social standing. Oh, yeah, that'll do it. It's another thing Carnegie should put in this book. Yeah, don't be a snitch. But don't worry, Blue Ice Cubes happens to the best of us. So the first principle that I shared just a moment ago is generally refrain from being critical of people that you're interacting with. And Carnegie has a distinct way of putting this. And just to really put him on the board and help us get the full experience, chat, we are going there. I have Carnegie's book right here in front of me. Yes, here you can see it. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the way that he puts this first principle to sort of avoid being critical of people you're interacting with, you can see this is in the part 1 here, the first chapter of part 1, fundamental techniques and handling people. So that's why I introduced these as his major principles. These are what he calls his fundamental techniques. And the way that he puts this one is, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Bit of a metaphorical way of putting it, but I like it. And he illustrates his point with a lot of anecdotes. I won't be able to read all of the anecdotes, but there was this one passage here that I wanted to read. He writes, "Criticism is futile because it puts a man on the defensive and usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous because it wounds a man's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arouses his resentment." And I think that really captures the core of what Carnegie is saying here, is that when you criticize someone, very often the reaction they'll have, not always, but often, is to become defensive. And that just makes them less likely to listen to what you have to say. Surprise hand cam. Let's go. Yeah, I know. I love introducing the surprise hand cam for streams like this. So I'm glad you enjoy it too, Tia. Now, he continues a bit later. This is on, let's see if I could find it here. Yes, page 27. Carnegie has another passage where he elaborates on this principle. He writes, "If you and I want to stir up a resentment tomorrow that may rankle across the decades and endure until death, just let us indulge in a little stinging criticism, no matter how certain we are that it is justified. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity." Do you have a boo-boo on your finger? Maybe a little one. Maybe just a slight hangnail. Hope it isn't too gruesome for anybody here. So those passages, I think, are pretty useful for understanding what Carnegie is trying to say here. And for this, just to help us sort of see the mindset that he's approaching this with, think of times that you've interacted with someone, chat, and they've criticized you. Especially like if that's how they started the interaction. Like, it wasn't an interaction where the criticism came up only later, but that's what they went out with right out of the gate. How did you react in that moment? Did you take the criticism seriously, or did it just make you defensive? Did it make you dislike the other person? I can say, for my experience, I have found myself reacting in really either of those two ways. I think a lot of it depends on whether the criticism strikes me as a serious one. But that said, in any case, when it comes to social skills, if you are unsure of whether you should voice a criticism of the person that you're speaking with, it is generally safest to err on the side of not being critical, to err on the side of holding your tongue. Now, with that in mind, I realize some of you are probably worrying right now about something that is a very good question one could raise to Carnegie. And this question, this worry, is, aren't there times where criticism is necessary? Where it really is important for us to give some helpful information to the other person on what they could be doing better. Like maybe we're that person's boss and they're an employee and their work is just not up to the standard, or if it's a friend who has done something that has hurt our feelings and we want to let them know about that. Wouldn't it just be too extreme to say that we should never criticize others? And indeed it would, and Carnegie recognizes this. So he recognizes that there are times when criticism is needed. Twin, I just cut my finger. Oh, sorry to hear you cut your finger too, Blaze Cubes. But hey, at least we're twins. At least we don't have to go through it alone. If invalid criticism, mock in. If valid criticism, violence. Yeah, I guess that's one way to think of one's responses, Apa. Yeah, Carnegie doesn't say much about violence. I think he's just assuming that whatever reactions are going to be present in these social situations, they won't reach that dire a level. But it sounds like with you, that's on the table. Now, one thing Carnegie adds to that, though, is that even though there are times when criticism is necessary, one should generally attend to one's own faults before criticizing others. So get your own house in order, in other words. And I'd like to just show the way that he puts this. This is on a different page. Carnegie writes, "Do you know someone that you would like to change and improve? Good, that is fine. I'm all in favor of it. But why not begin on yourself? From a purely selfish standpoint, that is a lot more profitable than trying to improve others. Yes, and a lot less dangerous. A lot less dangerous, especially in your case, Apa, apparently, with the violence being on the table. Maybe he was thinking of you there. When a man's fight begins within himself, said Browning, he is worth something. It will probably take from now until Christmas to perfect yourself." Oh no, we just had Christmas, chat, so this is going to take a long time. Now until Christmas to perfect yourself. You can then have a nice long rest over the holidays and devote the new year to regulating and criticizing other people. But perfect yourself first. Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof, said Confucius, when your own doorstep is unclean. True, hypocrisy is really off-putting. That's right, yeah, nobody likes to encounter hypocrisy. Also, one thing I should say about Carnegie's language is you might notice that a lot of it is put in terms of changing a man or what a man should do, what a man should think. We have to keep in mind this book was written almost 100 years ago by now, so some of the choices, the linguistic conventions that it uses might seem a little outdated. But whenever Carnegie says something like that, I just always imagine it as applying to everyone, which is what I think Carnegie would, how he would envision how his advice is meant as well. Something, beam in one's eye, not a Christian, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I think that this kind of precept of avoiding hypocrisy is something that, yeah, one can find in many religions and traditional philosophies. And you're absolutely right, Tia, that Christianity, with Jesus's advice there, is one of the classic statements of it. 12 months at least. Yeah. Yeah, almost 12 months till the next Christmas. But as all of this is being said, there is room for a further worry one might have, which is okay, Dale. It's good to make sure your own house is in order before launching into criticism of others, true. But aren't there still times when a certain criticism of the other is necessary, even if we haven't perfected ourselves yet? Perfecting oneself is a high bar. And how do we approach those times when a criticism is needed, but where we just have to prioritize that before we've made sure to fully rid ourselves of all of our faults? So in other words, what about when you must criticize? Now, to his credit, Carnegie treats this question very seriously, and in fact, he devotes an entire section of the book to this. This is part 4 of the book, the section titled 9 Ways to Change People Without Giving Offense or Arousing Resentment. So I'd like to share with you now, chat, those 9 precepts, or those 9 principles, along with some illustrations that Carnegie uses to give life to them. Because if you follow all of these, I think that generally you can voice criticisms or make suggestions to others in ways that will not tank your relationship with that person. And the first principle that he gives here is to begin with praise and appreciation, an honest appreciation, not just flattery, but to be genuine and to really show the person that you are someone who appreciates them, that you appreciate their good qualities. And the way that he puts this in the text that I would like to share with you now, some of his chapter titles are a bit metaphorical. But he puts this on, page 172 as, if you must find fault, this is the way to begin. So he doesn't tell you immediately. He kind of teases at what's coming, but then at the end of the chapter is where he says, begin with praise and honest appreciation. And he gives a really nice illustration of this in the text. There's an anecdote from it that I want to share with you. And that anecdote, chat, has to do with Abraham Lincoln, the U.S. president during the American Civil War, who is someone that Dale Carnegie also wrote a book about called Lincoln the Unknown. So a lot of the examples in this text, or at least several of them, involve Lincoln. And the example of this principle, the principle of beginning with praise and honest appreciation, has to do with a letter that Lincoln wrote to this man, whose name was Joseph Hooker. Hooker was a general, a Union general in the Civil War. And as we will see in a moment in this letter, Lincoln wanted to express, and did express, some very serious criticism of Hooker in a letter, but he did so in a tactful way. And part of that tact was beginning with praise, beginning with his honest appreciation. And so I can share with you now, chat, that is on this page. So you can see it here. Here's the letter addressed to Major General Hooker. Lincoln writes, "I have placed you at the head of the Army of the Potomac. Of course, I have done this upon what appear to me to be sufficient reasons, and yet I think it best for you to know that there are some things in regard to which I am not quite satisfied with you." So Lincoln puts up he sort of hints at, okay, the criticism is going to come, but notice he doesn't immediately launch into it. He says, "I believe you to be a brave and skillful soldier," which of course I like. "I also believe you do not mix politics with your profession," in which you are right. "You have confidence in yourself, which is a valuable, if not indispensable, quality. You are ambitious, which, within reasonable bounds, does good rather than harm. But I think that during General Burnside's command of the army, you have taken counsel of your ambition and thwarted him as much as you could, in which you did a great wrong to the country and to a most meritorious and honorable brother officer. I have heard, in such a way as to believe it, of you recently saying that both the army and the government needed a dictator. Of course, it was not for this, but in spite of it, that I have given you command. Only those generals who gain successes can set up as dictators. What I now ask of you is military success, and I will risk the dictatorship. The government will support you to the utmost of its ability, which is neither more nor less than it has done and will do for all commanders. I much fear that the spirit, which you have aided to infuse into the army, of criticizing their commander and withholding confidence from him, will now turn upon you. I shall assist you, as far as I can, to put it down. Neither you nor Napoleon, if he were alive again, could get any good out of an army while such spirit prevails in it. And now beware of rashness. Beware of rashness, but with energy and sleepless vigilance go forward and give us victories. So what I think is really cool about this letter chat is the criticism that Lincoln voices is quite serious. So he accuses General Hooker of acting against one of the other generals, General Burnside, trying to thwart General Burnside, who was a commander of the army. And he also points out that Hooker seems to have some, somewhat concerning beliefs about dictators and how the government and the army need dictators. But Lincoln doesn't start with all of that. Instead, he gives some very serious, very genuine praise of how General Hooker is someone who is a brave and skillful soldier, someone who has confidence in himself, and how these are indispensable qualities. So I quite like this example that Carnegie gives from his text there. Sorry for random self-promo. I don't normally do this. Oh, okay. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, yeah, Tia Fair is another philosopher VTuber. So yeah, you should check out her channel. But think for a moment, chat, are there any times in your life when you've had to criticize someone? If so, have you used this principle of, beginning with something more positive about them? Because if you have, I think probably what you also will have found is that helps the interaction go a bit more smoothly. Maybe Lincoln also read the book. Maybe so, who knows? It would be wonderful just to imagine that Carnegie was a time traveler and he liked Lincoln so much he went back in time and gave Lincoln a copy of the book just to, to show Lincoln how much he cared. I find that a very heartwarming story to imagine. Now, a further principle that Carnegie goes into, this is the second one for when you must criticize others, is that you should try to call attention to people's mistakes indirectly, if possible. So indirectly, if possible. And I quite like the title of the chapter that he gives this. He calls it How to Criticize and Not Be Hated for It. So that's the chapter where he gives this advice of try to call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. And he gives two anecdotes here. One of them, the first is about Charles Schwab. He writes, Charles Schwab was passing through one of his steel mills one day at noon when he came across some of his employees smoking. Immediately above their heads was a sign which said, "No smoking." Did Schwab point to the sign and say, "Can't you read?" Oh, no, not Schwab. He walked over to the men, handed each one a cigar, and said, "I'll appreciate it, boys, if you will smoke these on the outside." They knew that he knew that they had broken a rule, and they admired him because he said nothing about it and gave them a little present and made them feel important. Couldn't keep from loving a man like that, could you? John Wanamaker used the same technique. Wanamaker used to make a tour of his great store in Philadelphia every day. Once he saw a customer waiting at a counter. No one was paying the slightest attention to her. The salespeople, they were in a huddle at the far end of the counter, laughing and talking among themselves. Wanamaker didn't say a word. Quietly slipping behind the counter, he waited on the woman himself and then handed the purchase to the salespeople to be wrapped as he went on his way. And just for me, I will say, chat, if this had happened to me, like if I were one of these salespeople who had it pointed out to me in this very indirect way that I had really screwed up and was not paying attention to a customer, to me, that would hit so much harder in terms of motivating me to change my behavior in the future than if the manager just like got up in my face and said like, hey, what are you doing? This is not okay. And I don't know why that is exactly. It's difficult to explain, but perhaps it's that if someone calls out a mistake of yours indirectly, you know that the other person is being considerate about it, and I suppose it hurts more to have disappointed someone who is being nice and considerate to you than someone who is being mean. Niken says, I always felt that I would be misunderstood and hated, which is why I prefer not to speak at all. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Niken. That sounds like a hard and lonely state to be living in. What I can tell you is that if you speak up about things, there will almost certainly be some people who will not like what you have to say. I think that's just one of the risks that's basically inherent to any kind of genuine expression. But also, I predict that there are at least some people who really would identify with what you have to say. And maybe by being open about your thoughts, perhaps that could be the start of a deeper friendship or relationship with them. So I would encourage you to keep that possibility in mind. Because no matter how many people might not like what you have to say, if it's the start of even one closer friendship or one closer relationship, I would like to think that it's very much worth it. Robo says, IDK, that sounds like negging to me. Oh, yeah, like starting with a compliment. I mean, I see the JK there, but yeah, it is kind of funny to... I guess it's like the mirror image of... Well, maybe not the mirror image, because I guess, yeah, with negging, I feel dirty even talking about this, but yeah, like one starts with what seems like a compliment, but then turns it into an insult. I guess the starting the praise has to be genuine and starting out. I guess that's what Carnegie would rely on here. But yeah, I wonder, like, what would Carnegie even think about something like negging? What would Abraham Lincoln think? I can just see the sense of disappointment in his eyes right now, chat. Whenever I hated something, I wouldn't speak up about it. Yeah, it can be tough to speak up about things that we feel strongly about. Perhaps especially when the feelings are negative, because we risk not being understood by others. So for my part, I can understand that fear of judgment from others. I still think it's worthwhile to do, but I know where you're coming from when you express that fear. To be honest, most of the times I just stop in the first step and think if criticism is really needed, and if I can't just change my own perspective about it or adapt to it. That's a useful perspective too, Apa, because sometimes you'll find yourself thinking, okay, like, you know, do I get on the other person's case about this? Do I criticize them for it? And you might realize, hey, like, it's really not even necessary to go into this. You know, it would be better just to drop the matter and let it stay in the past. And it sounds to me like you're someone who is maybe good at recognizing those times. I think that's an important part of having the practical wisdom of good social skills. That's what the internet is for, Niken. If you don't like something, you could be someone else or even anonymous. I'm only being kind of sarcastic. Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it too, is if you really want to express an opinion, but let's say you're not quite ready to put it under your own name or with your face and name, then sometimes expressing it in an anonymous way or under a pseudonym can be a good first step. Honestly, I think I'm still struggling with that, Niken. Growing up, people would criticize me mercilessly while not accepting crit towards them. So what Carnegie says is hard for me to practice. Yeah, sorry to hear you had that experience, Tia, but I can understand how that would make Carnegie's advice more challenging to put into practice. No doubt about that. And I'm kind of afraid of speaking up. Even at internet, I always had rough relationships with siblings. Yeah, I think that's understandable too. What I might encourage, Niken, and you might have already thought about this or done this, in which case you can ignore this advice, but maybe you can slowly build up to it, you know? Like if you find yourself thinking of like, hey, here's an opinion that I have that's maybe not quite as strong as some of my other opinions. It's just something that I kind of think. Maybe you could be open about that on the internet, because that might be a little less scary to put out there. And maybe over time, with enough experiences like that, you will become more comfortable with expressing your opinion and might get to a point where you can start voicing it about the things that you do feel strongly about. At the very least, I would like to think that that might be worth a try, if it's something that you haven't tried yet. Max is right. There are people out there who want to hear from you, Nike, and I believe that. Absolutely. And that's very well put, Robo. So thank you for saying that. But let us look at Carnegie's third precept. So we've looked at two of them so far for what to do when you must criticize someone. And the third is to talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. So your own mistakes before sort of launching into like how the other person could improve. And the anecdote that Carnegie uses to illustrate this one is, so I accidentally bumped into my camera earlier, so I'm going to see if I can adjust it. Okay, that's a little bit better. So here's what Carnegie writes, just to give an example of what this principle looks like in practice. A few years ago, my niece, Joseph Carnegie, sorry, not Joseph, Josephine Carnegie, I can't read, what is going on? Left her home in Kansas City and came to New York to act as my secretary. She was 19, had graduated from high school 3 years previously, and her business experience was a trifle more than zero. Today, she was one of the most perfect secretaries west of Suez, but in the beginning, she was, well, susceptible to improvement. One day, when I started to criticize her, I said to myself, just a minute, Dale Carnegie, just a minute. You are twice as old as Josephine. You had 10,000 times as much business experience. How can you possibly expect her to have your viewpoint, your judgment, your initiative, mediocre though they may be? And just a minute, Dale, what were you doing at 19? Remember the asinine mistakes and blunders you made? Remember the time you did this and that? After thinking the matter over honestly and impartially, I concluded that Josephine's batting average at 19 was better than mine had been. And that, I'm sorry to confess, isn't paying Josephine much of a compliment. So after that, when I wanted to call Josephine's attention to a mistake, I used to begin by saying, "You have made a mistake, Josephine, but the Lord knows it's no worse than many I have made. You were not born with judgment. That comes only with experience. And you are better than I was at your age. I have been guilty of so many stupid, silly things myself. I have very little inclination to criticize you or anyone. But don't you think it would have been wiser if you had done so-and-so? It isn't nearly so difficult to listen to a recital of your own faults if the criticizer begins by humbly admitting that he, too, is far from impeccable." And the way that he puts it here, especially in that second to last paragraph, like he really does, it sounds sincere the way that he describes his own mistakes. And that's important here too, is that for thinking of these principles and applying them to human conduct, it's important that they not be applied just in a rote, mechanical way, but that you really put yourself in the mindset of genuinely acknowledging, like, hey, there are plenty of things that I could do better and that I could have done better. And being open about those things with the other person shows that you're not just interested in attacking them, but that you are also willing to acknowledge the ways that you yourself could improve. Also, Zero, hi, welcome. Nice to see you. Niken says, I always didn't have much confidence in talking. I thought if I lost weight and looked better, I would be able to socialize better. I lost 30 kilograms in 6 months, started dressing better. I did get some genuine compliments about my looks, but I realized it didn't help with my social skills at all. After a few bad stuff, I got depressed and gained all the weight back. Sorry for trauma dumping. Yeah, no worries, Nike. I enjoy hearing about your experiences. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that they've had some rough moments like that. But my hope is that over time, you'll come to feel more comfortable interacting with others. Just keep in mind not to be too hard on yourself. You know, take it slow, baby steps. And what I predict is that over time, if you just keep making those small steps, things will improve significantly. Nah, you good? Spider-Man rules, everyone gets one. Don't worry too much about it. You've been holding this back for a long time. I'm sure it happens to the best of us. Yeah, you know, one thing, and not this is just a side note for me, but one thing I really like about this chat in my community is just how supportive everyone is. Like, we're a nice group here, and I think that it's so cool to see. Well, first of all, and I can the way that you're very open about sharing your experiences here, I think that says a lot about you, you know, because that's not the easiest thing to talk about. And also just seeing, you know, the supportive comments that the others are leaving. To me, it's just a really nice and wonderful thing, and I try not to take this kind of thing for granted. Now, a fourth principle that Carnegie shares for when you must criticize others, and even if you just were to put into action these three so far, I think that makes a huge difference compared to not putting any of them into practice. But remember, he gives 9 of these for what to do when to criticize another person. So principle 4 is ask questions instead of giving direct orders. So when you want someone to do something, try not to just put it as, hey, you know, do this. Because that's very blunt. That's not very, you know, socially skilled. But instead, see if you can put it as a question. And Carnegie himself puts this pretty directly in the text when you say, like, no one likes to take orders. That is a pretty universal human truth, I think. And he does give an example of this here of Owen D. Young. Now, I had to look up who this person was, but Owen D. Young lived from 1874 to 1962. He was an American industrialist, businessman, lawyer, and diplomat. Someone who had quite a few roles and was responsible for managing quite a lot of people. He writes that Owen D. Young he had never heard, so this was Dale Carnegie hearing this from someone else, he had never heard Owen D. Young give a direct order to anyone. He always gave suggestions, not orders. Owen D. Young never said, for example, do this or do that, or don't do this or don't do that. He would say, you might consider this, or do you think that would work? Frequently, he would say, after he had dictated a letter, what do you think of this? In looking over a letter of one of his assistants, he would say, maybe if we were to phrase it this way, it would be better. He always gave a person an opportunity to do things himself. He never told his assistants to do things. He let them do them. Let them learn from their mistakes. A technique like that makes it easy for a person to correct his error. A technique like that saves a man's pride and gives him a feeling of importance. It makes him want to cooperate instead of rebel. So likewise, a very important part of interacting smoothly with others is to not put yourself in the position of bossing them around and giving orders to the extent possible. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh yeah, sure, Niken. Absolutely. Tia says, this might sound like an obvious statement, but I feel like I struggle with formulating criticism when I feel like the other person isn't emotionally intelligent. And if my crit was too subtle, then it would go over their head. But if it wasn't, it might start a fight that I just don't have the energy for. Yeah, I can see how that would be a tough dilemma for cases like that. I'm trying to think of, like, yeah, what would the best way of approaching cases like this be? I mean, I suppose, I don't know if I would put this as something one always should do, but just what I think I would do if I were having that uncertainty, Tia, is I would maybe start with the subtle version of the criticism and just see if that sticks, see if the person understands it. And if it doesn't, then maybe on a different occasion, bring it up again, but, in a slightly less subtle way. And over time, even if it takes like one or two or three occasions, I would like to think that eventually the other person would see it. And if they do get mad later, and if it starts a fight, I think you could, like, one thing you could say, or one thing that anyone in your position could say in a case like that is, well, I did bring it up in a very, subtle, very considerate way earlier. And I think just being able to point that out is something that is powerful and might help the other person to see that you are, in fact, not someone who's just interested in attacking them, that you are, in fact, in some important sense, on their side. I always think that everyone hates me. Well, I don't know if this will help, Zero, but I do not hate you. I think that you are great. So you have at least one fan in your camp. I know everyone hates me. Oh no, Robo. I don't hate you either, Robo. I like having you in my chat. So just as with Zero, you can know that you have at least one supporter, one fan. Though I'm willing to bet that both of you have many more, that it's not just me. But even if it were just me, there would at least be me. So I was thinking of whether there are any examples I could give for this, of asking questions instead of giving orders. I think the most I can do is maybe not a sort of real life example, but I might just try to draw one really briefly. It's like, let's suppose that you have a person who's maybe at a restaurant, and I guess if they're a restaurant, there like needs to be a chair. So here I'm just going to draw a little chair. Sorry, that's that's supposed to be a chair, but they're like half standing on it. Anyway, we'll just not worry about it too much, chat. Or if I want to make this like a 3D chair, let's give it some backing. See, now there's a bit of depth to it. And anyway, we'll just imagine, okay, this person is at a restaurant and they want to order something, and suppose they put it as a command. They put it as a direct order. They might say, bring me a triple berry, let's just make it a smoothie. Now, is this the worst thing that you could say to someone? No, but wouldn't it be better if instead of putting this as an order, if the person just slightly rephrased it as a question? And if they said something like, maybe, could you bring me a triple berry smoothie? See, notice how much more polite that sounds than if they just phrase it as an order or as a command. So that's just one really quick example. But I think that this kind of principle applies to lots of cases beyond that. Real talk, Zero Striker. I think you're one of the most well-liked people in Karis's community, but I'm not immune to that feeling myself. Yeah, I suppose that it seems like everyone, or almost everyone, I think, has worries like this, at least from time to time. They'll be like, hey, how liked am I by others? Do other people really like me? But I very much agree with what Tia says about you, that I think like everyone in Karis's community seems to like you. No need to be anxious with the idea that maybe you're hated. I hate everyone. Be relaxed with the factual knowledge. Well, thank you for confirming with this, Terraditto. And I think that's one of the reasons everyone likes you, Terraditto, is that you have that sense of humor. No negative self-talk in chat makes Justice unhappy. Yeah, I think we are way too hard on ourselves many times. It's very easy to be overly harsh on oneself. Looks like a lawn chair. What? Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, it kind of does. Because it is kind of big. No, I will accept that critique. Oh, and Zero. Okay, yeah, Zero. What you're saying there is something. Yeah, I very much agree. I didn't see your comment until just now, but when you say, yeah, Tia, thank you, and I suppose everyone feels like maybe everyone hates them from time to time. I think that is true. Now, a fifth principle that Carnegie shares for voicing criticisms of others, for when you have to voice criticism of others, is to let the other person save face to the extent that you can. And this is something that he goes into right on the next page from where we were. Let the other person save face. In the example that he gives here, a lot of his examples involve business, since Carnegie was really someone who was into business. He writes, years ago, the General Electric Company was faced with the delicate task of removing Charles Steinmetz from the head of a department. Steinmetz, a genius of the first magnitude when it came to electricity, was a washout as the head of the calculating department. Yet the company didn't dare offend the man. He was indispensable and highly sensitive. So they gave him a new title. They made him consulting engineer of the General Electric Company, a new title for work he was already doing, and let someone else head up the department. Steinmetz was happy. So were the officers of the GE. They had gently maneuvered their most temperamental star, and they had done it without a storm, by letting him save his face. One thing I like about that example is that it presents a really difficult situation. I'm not sure I would have known what to do in that situation, but the fact that they were able to give him a new title and make it seem like something really big and important, and then bring in another person to do the work that he wasn't doing as well. It sounds like it really smoothed over a lot of tension that would otherwise have arisen. Like if they had just told him, look, dude, your work on this is not good enough. You're going to have to either step it up or like we're going to have to like kick you out. Like that would not, he probably would have just blown up and left the company and everyone would have been worse off for it. But by letting him save face, they were able to provide a much more amicable solution to that problem. This one I can easily get behind. Like even if you have to give negative feedback, give them a chance to defend themselves, explain their side of the story. Helps to ask questions instead of accuse. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too, a good observation. Because I think few things are as alienating as just like being brought into a meeting with someone and just having them instantly start, chewing you out without even asking for your side of the story. If they give you a chance to explain yourself, and if they ask questions, then that at least goes some way toward showing that they're on your side and are not just out to get you. Now, a sixth principle that Carnegie shares for when you must voice criticism is that you should also be sure to praise like the slightest improvement that the other person shows. And praise every improvement that they show too. Like be very ample, be very generous with your praise of this person. And this is such an important principle that he calls the chapter where he talks about it, how to spur men on to success. And this is the advice of the chapter is to, as he puts it at the end here, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement, be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. And perhaps the best example of this has to do with, oh yeah, it starts right here near the bottom of this page. He writes, for example, half a century ago, a boy of 10 was working in a factory in Naples. He longed to be a singer, but his first teacher discouraged him. You can't sing, he said. You haven't any voice at all. It sounds like the wind in the shutters. But his mother, a poor peasant woman, put her arms around him and praised him and told him she knew he could sing. She could already see an improvement. and she went barefoot in order to save money to pay for his music lessons. That peasant mother's praise and encouragement changed that boy's life. You may have heard of him. His name was Caruso. Now, for this, I would like to just acknowledge, chat. Unfortunately, the rhetorical impact of the end of that passage was lost on me because I had never heard of Caruso. Just owing to the fact that it's been so long since this book was written. I'm a little behind the times on who was big, in the early 20th century. But of course, for people who were reading this book back then when it was written, this was someone who would have been better known. I did look him up later, and this passage appears to be referring to Enrico Caruso. So Enrico Caruso, just to show a little bit about who you see there. There he is right there. 1873 to 1921. And he was an Italian, operatic tenor, who, as the article puts it, who sang to great acclaim at the major opera houses of Europe and the Americas, appearing in a wide variety of roles that range from the lyric to the dramatic. Generally recognized as the first international recording star, made around 250 commercially released recordings from 1902 to 1920. So in other words, just to shorten this, basically everyone, he was the first VTuber, is really what it was like here. So all of Carnegie's readers back when this text was first written would have recognized that name. But I just find that such a moving story that even in the face of the discouragement, he was able to persevere because of the praise that he received from his mom. The fact that she told him that he could sing, and she, as this one puts it, went barefoot to save money for his music lessons. And he went on to find lots of success later. I think that's a wonderful story, which all just goes to show Carnegie's principle here that, try to also make sure to praise people and praise any improvement that they show. Man, if only my family had read Dale Carnegie. Yeah, I wish they had too, Tia. Enrico Caruso was a pretty big name. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like he was pretty big. It sounds like maybe you've heard of him, or maybe you heard of him before the stream. I don't believe in magic, but yeah, it was quite. I enjoyed learning about him and his life. God, people who shoot down kids' creative ambitions are just, ugh. Yeah, I know what you mean, Tia. That's one of the worst things I think someone could do. Is he no longer a recognizable name? Not to me. I had never heard. I had no idea who he was when I read that passage. I suppose people who are into music, though, probably know him, have a better chance of knowing him than people who are not. Axaeon ancestor? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like my great grandfather or something. Hello, I heard today we are speaking in social skills. That's right, TP Ninja, and welcome. Yes, we're going over how to be a socially skilled person. Now, principle 7 of Carnegie's 9 principles for what to do when you must criticize is to give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Fine reputation to live up to. And he puts this in the title that he gives to this chapter, Give the Dog a Good Name. It's maybe a little infantilizing or a little bit diminutive, but nevertheless, what he means by it is just, as he puts it, give a man a fine reputation to live up to. And the example that he gives, I would just like to read his example here. A friend of mine, Mrs. Ernest Gent, 175 Brewster Road, Scarsdale, New York. Side note, I like that he gives the actual address of this person in the text. Just an old-fashioned thing that, you wouldn't really see in a book written today. Hired a servant girl, telling her to report for work the following Monday. In the meantime, Mrs. Gant telephoned a woman who had formerly employed this girl. All was not well. When the girl came to start work, Mrs. Gant said, "Nellie, I telephoned the other day to a woman you used to work for. She said you were honest and reliable, a good cook and good at caring for the children. But she also said you were sloppy and never kept the house clean." But she also sorry, now I think she was lying. You dress neatly. Anybody can see that. And I'll bet you keep the house just as neat and clean as your person. You and I are going to get along fine. And they did. Nellie had a reputation to live up to. And believe me, she did live up to it. She kept the house shining. She would gladly have scrubbed and dusted an extra hour a day, rather than be untrue to Mrs. Gent's ideal of her. So we see that she did not want to disappoint Mrs. Gent because Mrs. Gent had high expectations coming in. And I think this is something that has been true in my experience too, is that particularly as a teacher and professor back when I was in full-time teaching jobs, one thing that I noticed is that it's very important not to talk down to young people. And I think by making it clear to them that I knew they could do great things, I think that was one thing that really helped them succeed. That's just an observation based on my experience, but I know many who are, or who have been in education, feel similarly. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. TP Ninja, I'm complaining about my Asian family, you in? It's my extended family, I'm always down to complain. Now Robo said, wait, we aren't talking about Andrew Carnegie? Oh no. Yeah, I should have. I guess, it's funny that you mentioned that, Robo, because in my own thinking, I don't really, I mean, I know they're two different people, but sometimes I don't really think very hard on the distinction between them either. I just think like, oh yeah, like some guy named Carnegie who lived a long time ago. And yeah, the distinction between them can be kind of slippery in my mind sometimes. TP Ninja says, I'm comforted by Tara's hate for everyone, thus ensuring that I'm hated equally and treated the same. Love you, Tara. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Tara Ditto is someone who treats everyone very fairly, whether it's from hate or from love. That fairness is always present. Oh, also Professor Lackatax, welcome. And yeah, I hope everyone likes seeing my hand in the dot cam. See, look there, it's waving to you. Hi, everyone. Maybe I should wave it like this just to make it face the right direction. So it's kind of awkward waving under a camera like this. It just doesn't quite look right. But anyway, okay, well, yeah, that's right. Thumbs up. These are the adventures you can have with dot cam. It's always good to remember that kids are smart. Because I think so many kids are used to being talked down to. When someone really believes in them, it can make a big difference. This is also an easy one. Studies have shown our labels for people, especially children, are often self-fulfilling prophecies. Yeah, that seems true too. That's a good point that you bring up, Tia, there. It's true, Tara is Tara. Hand is the most yaoi part of the body. Oh no. I'm trying to keep this a safe for work stream. Uh-oh. I don't believe magic says checking the point for Caruso, but I do want to say I'm not too big a fan of the story. I think it's true what he says, but I think it's also important to know that Caruso was never discriminated. The words, okay, it continues. The words were harsh, but that was how all maestros were. Caruso was still allowed to stay in the class and allowed to sing with others. So there, I do think it's important to, yeah, so not have an exaggerated view of things, as you point out. I don't believe in magic. So we don't want to say that, yeah, he was someone who faced every possible disadvantage or every form of discrimination. But yeah, I mean, I still like the story just because I think it shows how he overcame at least what sounds like a significant obstacle in terms of the discouragement that he faced, even if others were facing equally bad or worse obstacles. To me, just knowing that the encouragement made a difference to him, I think makes it a heartwarming story. But of course, other people might have different reactions. The overall point, I still agree with Carnegie. I just know too much about history because I have autism. Well, hey, the fact that you've used that to help you learn more about history, I think that's really cool. I could stand to learn more about history myself. I don't believe in magic. I will say, though, this is my lived experience and partially due to societal and familial pressures, but I've always been placed under high expectations to succeed. Having spent a lifetime failing to meet those expectations, I wonder if having such expectations can be harmful too. That is a very good question, TP Ninja, or a very good point to bring up. Because I myself too, I think that sometimes people can take it too far, especially if they come across as suggesting that for the kids or for the young people to meet the expectations is a requirement for the kids to continue being loved. Like, you're not going to be loved and respected if you don't reach, first place in the class, if you don't win such and such scholarship, if you don't win the championship, win the tournament. I do think that that's very harmful. But I suppose that the approach I would be in favor of is just letting kids know that you believe in their capacity to fulfill their dreams, like whatever their dreams end up being. But also, like, you will always be there to love and support them. I guess that's the balance that I wish people would always manage to strike. Ax, do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall? I'm afraid I don't. I know it's out there somewhere, but I don't think I've ever been. It's probably a nice place, nice building though. I'm back. Oh, welcome back, Niken. Also, call me Magic if you wish. It's a bit less a mouthful. Okay, Magic, thank you. That does help. Expectations are crushing, I would say, especially for kids, especially people who might not reach them. It just makes them feel awful. Yeah, I know that is a good point too. I mean, I guess maybe one way of specifying, or one way of avoiding this kind of risk, is perhaps if the expectations are put not in terms of some external standard of like, hey, I know you're going to like be number one in the class, especially if it's an expectation that involves something that like not everyone can succeed in by its very nature. Like, there can only be one student who's number one in the class. But if it's more along the lines of like, I know you're going to do great things, whatever you decide, or I know you're going to be able to make wonderful progress in the direction of your dreams, whatever those dreams are. I would like to think with that, maybe there's a little less of that sense of pressure and of having to live up to a standard that's kind of being imposed on someone. Since in this way of doing it, the students or the person's own dreams would be kind of defining in a large way what they are imagining themselves as living up to. He likes saying the full user, I think. Well, I don't know if I would say I like saying the full username. It's just that's what I see in YouTube on the chat, and sometimes I just kind of default to that. And then Tia says to Magic, I hope this isn't patronizing, but autism or not, I'd say your social skills are good and your trivia is interesting. Yeah, I would agree with... So Magic, I agree very much with Tia when she says that. You practice? Mm-hmm. Yeah, practice is crucial, no doubt about that. For those who can meet expectations, they end up having to continue meeting the next agreement. But for those who can't, they always wonder what's wrong with them. Yeah, I guess if the expectations are this sort of externally imposed thing, if the parents are saying like, yeah, I know you're going to be a doctor and like that's what we're choosing for you. And if the person just can't do that or doesn't want to do that, that would be one example, I suppose, of how, yeah, that could be especially crushing. TB Ninjas, yeah, that is an ideal balance. Sadly, especially in context in Asian or also in Singapore, that isn't the balance struck with expectations. Yeah, I've heard that before, that the expectations can be very strict and dogmatically imposed in those areas. Sorry to hear that. TP Ninja, you sound like an accomplished and bright young man, so try not to concern yourself with unrealistic expectations. Oh, that's a very nice thing to say to TP Ninja, Tia. Take it from me, a VTuber, not the doctor, so definitely the family disappointment. Yeah, I wish I had something encouraging to say to you on that, but it's awful that happened. I'm sorry to hear you had to go through that. So I've been enjoying the discussion. I'm just in the interest of moving on and seeing what Carnegie's 2 final principles are for when you must criticize. Here I'd like to share principle number 8. And this is to use encouragement, and also to encouragement in a way that makes the fault seem easy to correct. So in other words, not presenting it as something that the other person is incapable of, but a way that, should be very well within the person's abilities. And here's just a little story that he gives that I also liked this story from the text. So I'm just going to read this one. He writes, "A short time ago, a bachelor friend of mine, about 40 years old, became engaged, and his fiancée persuaded him to take some belated dancing lessons. The Lord knows I needed dancing lessons," he confessed to me as he told the story, "for I danced just as I did when I first started 20 years ago. The first teacher I engaged probably told me the truth. She said I was all wrong. I would just have to forget everything and begin all over again. But that took the heart out of me. I had no incentive to go on, so I quit her. The next teacher may have been lying, but I liked it. She said nonchalantly that my dancing was a bit old-fashioned, perhaps, but the fundamentals were all right. And she assured me I wouldn't have any trouble learning a few new steps. The first teacher had discouraged me by emphasizing my mistakes. This new teacher did the opposite. She kept praising the things I did right and minimizing my errors. You have a natural sense of rhythm, she assured me. You really are a natural-born dancer. Now my common sense tells me that I always have been and always will be a fourth-rate dancer. Yet, deep in my heart, I still like to think that maybe she meant it. To be sure, I was paying her to say it. But why bring that up? At any rate, I know I am a better dancer than I would have been if she hadn't told me I had a natural sense of rhythm. That encouraged me. That gave me hope. That made me want to improve. Tell a child, a husband, or an employee that he is stupid or dumb at a certain thing, that he has no gift for it, and that he is doing it all wrong, and you have destroyed almost every incentive to try to improve. But use the opposite technique. Be liberal with your encouragement. Make the thing seem easy to do. Let the other person know that you have faith in his ability to do it, that he has an undeveloped flair for it, and he will practice until the dawn comes in at the window in order to excel. This is something I've tried to put into practice in my own teaching experiences. Try to always give the other person encouragement and let them know that I believe in them. And to the extent that there are any faults, make them seem easy to correct. And I found that in my experience, almost always that does end up being the case. That when the other person is given sufficient encouragement, it does end up being something that they are capable of doing, whatever it is that I'm encouraging them to do. Also, I don't know if I'll be able to get to all the comments here, but I do just want to say I love how supportive the discussion is of everyone. Like all the comments that you all are leaving. TP Ninja and Magic and Tia and Lacatex and Blue Ice Cubes. Yeah, it really is wonderful. This is kind of funny, Blue, when you say instead of blaming others, blame one person for every misfortune. I'd hate to be that one person who's blamed for every misfortune. And Don't Magic says, in my view, sufficient encouragement works most of the time because most things aren't difficult enough that people can't do it if they truly try. Yeah, that seems right. That for a lot of the things that people are encouraged to do, there are things that are not, outside of an ordinary person's abilities. Like, we're not saying, oh, you have to be like the best basketball player in the world, but more of just like, hey, you can, can you show up to work on time? Or, or can you not say those things that hurt my feelings? Like, those are, and any ordinary person can do things like that. Now, chat, we've looked at 9, or sorry, I keep saying 9 because there are 9 total. So far, we've only seen 8. But if you are interested in knowing the 9th principle that Carnegie gives for why for when you must criticize someone. It's to make the other person happy about doing the thing that you suggest. So happy about doing the thing that you suggest. And by itself, that is a little vague, perhaps. But here is, and this is one thing Carnegie is very good at. He gives lots of illustrations, lots of anecdotes to illustrate his points. But here's one I'll just read from the start of this chapter. He writes, "Back in 1915, America was aghast. For more than a year, the nations of Europe had been slaughtering one another on a scale never before dreamed of in all the bloody annals of mankind. Could peace be brought about? No one knew. But Woodrow Wilson was determined to try. He would send a personal representative, a peace emissary, to counsel with the warlords of Europe. William Jennings Bryan, Secretary of State Bryan, the peace advocate, longed to go. He saw a chance to perform a great service and make his name immortal. But Wilson appointed another man, his intimate friend, Colonel House. It was House's thorny task to break the unwelcome news to Bryan without giving him offense. Bryan was distinctly disappointed when he heard I was to go to Europe as the peace emissary," Colonel House records in his diary. "He said he had planned to do this himself. I replied that the president thought it would be unwise for anyone to do this officially, and that his going would attract a great deal of attention, and people would wonder why he was there. You see the intimation. House practically tells Bryan that he is too important for the job, and Bryan is satisfied. Colonel House, adroit, experienced in the ways of the world, was following one of the important rules of human relations. Always make the other man happy about doing the thing you suggest." So that's a good one too, I think, that illustration. It's kind of like the one about how the General Electric manager was given a new title and then someone else was brought in to help with his old duties, in that there are ways of going about the interaction that help the other person save face. But yes, making the other person, if possible, happy about doing the thing you suggest can be a wonderful magic that you can work if you were able to find a way to do it. I think it's nice in its own way to be informing someone of their failings as a kind gesture. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, TP Ninja. Sometimes the kindest thing we could do for someone is to be open with them about ways they could improve. But to be open about them in a way that is itself compassionate and that follows at least the gist of these principles that Carnegie is laying out. But chat, that is all of the principles from this part of the book about how you should go about things when you must criticize someone else. Now, just as a little recap, remember there are two fundamental principles in this book, and one of them is to generally refrain from being critical of people you're interacting with, and if you must be critical of them, to do so following the precepts that we've just gone over. Now, the other major principle, or at least one other major principle in the book, is to make people feel appreciated, make people feel important. And we haven't really talked about that one very much yet. So I thought that perhaps we could move on now and talk a little bit about just how to make people feel appreciated, how to make them feel important. Now, Carnegie gives 6 ways of doing this. And this is in part 2 of the book. So he writes 6 ways to make people like you. That is the title of this section. And the first one, from chapter 1 of this section of the book, is to become genuinely interested in other people. So genuinely interested in other people. And just to revisit the text a little bit here, this is the title he gives this chapter is "Do this and you'll be welcome anywhere." Well, there he's referring to that, yeah, become genuinely interested in other people. And that is what will make you welcome anywhere, chat. Here's how he puts it on the next page. He writes, oh, and he repeats it too. Let me repeat that. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. So think on that for a moment. Yeah, trying to get other people interested in you, it's not something that often works, or at least doesn't work as easily as just you showing interest in others. And if you're wondering, okay, well, Axaeon, like, how do I go about showing genuine interest in other people? Well, here are some examples that come to my mind, at least. These could be things like, or maybe I shouldn't even put it in terms of examples, but just like a general principle or thought that I think is important for anyone who wants to do this, is first to recognize that every person, even if they're people who might have some qualities you don't like, that every person has some good qualities, like something about them that is worthwhile, or they have some distinctive experiences, that they have something you can learn from. And if you really think on this and internalize that, then it does seem that that is a way of making sure that you are interested in others people, or that you are in a place to become interested in other people. I think if you don't have this recognition, then it's going to be very difficult for you to have any interest in other people. And so in a moment, we'll look at some examples. In fact, why don't we do that right now? We can look at, like, yeah, like, what are some examples of what being interested in other people look like? And I know I just maybe jumped the gun there a little bit, but with the smile, because I think smiling at the start of interaction can be one way, but I don't have this on the board. But some examples of things that I think are good to do, like to show interest in people, or to congratulate them on things that they do. Like if somebody manages to get a promotion at their work, or they get a good grade on an assignment, or if they're a content creator and they reach a certain number of subscribers, or like put out a video that's really good, or do a good job on a live stream, like congratulate them. I think that is a great way of showing interest. Or you can just even like for something simpler, you can reach out on their birthday and say like, hey, like happy birthday, you. Or don't say you, but like say their actual name. But like, yeah, tell them happy birthday. Ask them about their interests. Ask them about their experiences, and genuinely listen. Like ask them like, hey, what have you been up to lately? Or, hey, I saw that you've made some new friends. Tell me about making these new friends, or and what they're like. I think all of those are wonderful ways of showing interest in someone else. And then Tia says, I used to struggle with this a lot, realized it was social anxiety paralyzing me from asking questions. Yeah, social anxiety will do that. I can understand how that would make it difficult to ask questions. I hope that that you feel as if that you feel less anxious in those moments than before. I don't know if you do, Tia, but I can understand how that's a hard thing to have that kind of anxiety. It's hard to reconcile at times. Oh, TP Ninja says, I like asking people about their work and hobbies. Yeah, absolutely. Their work and hobbies are two really good things to ask about for this. And then, oh yeah, earlier TP Ninja said, try part 2, but in measures to not come off as a sycophant or a suck-up. That's right. You don't want to take this too far, chat. You don't want to come across as someone who is just sucking up to others. And as you say, TP Ninja, it's hard to reconcile at times. There's a much easier way to be welcomed anywhere. It's to wear a bright orange vest and have a clipboard. Oh, yeah. Good point, Magic. That's another way of being welcome anywhere. So if you want to sidestep the social skills route, yes, that's something you can do. But yeah, Blue Ice Cubes, it sounds like you're doing a good job, because you say, I love listening to other people yap. So maybe you're the one who's doing the best of all of us on this criterion of showing genuine interest in other people. If you really love listening to other people, yeah. But then, yeah, Tia says, I feel like I can improve with this one. For example, I have these two senpai I feel I have a need to corral into doing various things, and I feel awkward about it sometimes. Oh, I think that must have been from earlier in the chat. Yeah, sometimes like little moments like that can be awkward. I think the best thing to do is just, if you find yourself feeling a need to corral, someone into doing something, maybe to think of it less in those terms and just like, oh, well, maybe I should like ask, these people. And here I'm not thinking of myself or anyone in particular, but just as a very general piece of advice that, at least that's what I like to do, is just kind of be like, hey, would you be interested in this? Or, hey, here's something that I thought might be cool. Like, what are your thoughts on this? But yeah, no, those it can still be a little awkward sometimes. So no doubt about that. But earlier, chat, you might have seen the next principle for ways to be likable. So I'll go ahead and share that now. And this will help you with your question too, Zero, when you say, how do I even like talk to people? Well, one thing to do is to smile with a certain caveat. So with a caveat that I'll mention in a moment. And the caveat is, actually first I'll just show a little bit of Carnegie's words on this. He calls this a simple way to make a good first impression. And that way is indeed simply to smile. Now, the caveat is that you don't need to smile all the time, of course. So it's not like you have to just 24/7 every interaction be smiling. That would be kind of weird, maybe a little creepy, would strain your face. So that's not what Carnegie is suggesting here. But it is good generally to smile at the start of an interaction. It's like you see a friend, you might smile when you greet them. Or if you're meeting someone new, like smiling as you shake their hand, then that's a good way of doing it too. I'll just tell you, chat, an anecdote from my own life, a way that I once learned that I could be doing better on this, is that it was during grad school. I was giving a practice job interview. So one thing my department did is that when a student was on the job market, as I was near the end of my grad school years, it was when I was applying to jobs, they would let us do practice interviews with the professors in our own department, just to give us some experience with being grilled about our work, our research, about our teaching, about how we might go about teaching classes at just, a given college and so on. And since the practice interviews and the real interviews were digital, they were over Zoom, they were virtual. The practice interview, I was just at my apartment with my laptop and was about to do it. And my laptop was just filled with sticky notes on the edge of the monitor, just trying to remind myself of points that I wanted to bring up and things I could say if they asked me about such and such topics. And by the time the interview started, because it was with probably like 5 or 6 professors, it was a pretty good number of them who were on campus who were there just to help me out with this practice interview. And even though it was just practice, it felt like a lot of pressure. By the time that it actually started, I was so caught up in just trying to make sure I said everything I wanted to say that when it started, I just, went into my opening spiel and just kind of started with that and then answered questions and so on. But one of the professors at the end gave me a piece of really good advice. And he said that make sure to, at the start of the interview, like if you interview with the actual people, smile, just, a little bit. Smile when the meeting starts, because that was something I had forgotten to do. So my face at the start of the interview, just to kind of show a little bit here what it looked like as I went into my opening spiel, it was basically like this. Like that's basically what I looked like as I was presenting myself to these, hypothetical professors of the new department for the first time. So like, I did not look happy to be there because I was just focused on the content of my words. And if instead I had started the interview by being like, hey, what's up, everyone? You know, good to, well, I'm not saying what's up, everyone, because that would have been a little informal, but, you know, hello, and then like introducing myself, saying who I am and what kinds of things I research with a smile at the start. That would have made it go much more smoothly. I was glad you liked the drawing, Tia. Yep. And this is something that I mentioned too, this story from my own life, because I think it can be easy to forget sometimes when we are in virtual meetings. If it's like a meeting over Zoom or Google Meet, we might just forget to smile because the other person is not, in fact, present in the room with us. It's just easier to forget that than it is if you're at an actual in-person interaction. But even in your virtual meetings, remember to, you know, smile at the start of it. And then, yeah, you raise a good point, Magic. Coming off as friendly is important in general. So I think the more important thing than just smiling. That's right. Yeah, smiling is one aspect, I think, of coming across as friendly. But yeah, you're right that there's certainly more to it than that. The drawing, it's beautiful. I'm so glad you all like my drawing skills. An interesting discussion, too, about masks in the chat. Since you said don't read this, Robo, I won't read your comment, but I do like seeing people's discussions about like when to take off a mask and when to put it on. Is this a good time to say I'd prefer for all my viewers to act natural? Forced positivity isn't better than negativity, at least not for justice. Yeah, I think I would agree with that, Tia. It's not a bad time to mention that. I think if there's something that someone is feeling negatively about, then I would want them to be open about that. So yeah, but I think it's also true, and not that you were denying this, but I guess what Carnegie might say is, like, it's also true that if, especially if you're meeting someone for the first time, usually the best thing to do is to smile, just to try to start the interaction off on a positive note, with possible exceptions for if it's like a negative interaction from the very beginning. Now, we've looked at two ways to be likable, two ways to make people like you. A third way, and it might sound very simple, but it is something that Carnegie puts a lot of emphasis on, is to use people's names. That's right. Well, to use and remember people's names, since using their name requires remembering their name, remembering how they call themselves. And this comes up here on page 73 with a kind of ominous chapter title. Carnegie says, if you don't do this, you are headed for trouble. Like, ooh, like what could Carnegie mean by this? But the way that he puts it near the end, and this is his way of summarizing all of the advice in this chapter, is a man's name is to him the sweetest, most important sound in any language. People love hearing their names spoken, is the just general vibe, general thing to remember from this chapter. And that seems to me like, you know, it's true that people really do. It makes an impression on people to have their names remembered and to have people use their names. One example that I'm thinking of, chat, is not that this is the kind of example that Carnegie was thinking of, but if someone is like a streamer that you're watching and they remember your name, or they remember who you are, and like they're not just reading your name from the chat, but like they explicitly call you out and say like, hey, so-and-so, like welcome to the stream. Like it's nice to see you again. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but like I've always like, wow, like that person remembers me, you know? So using names is important. See, like, yeah, Professor Lackatax gets it, like Axaeon. See, I feel better already just reading that comment, Lackatax, so thank you. Now, if you're wondering, chat, okay, but like, how do I remember people's names? What if I just forget? Then here are some strategies that are good to use. One of them is just mindful attention. So that is when you're being introduced to someone, like actually pay attention when they say what their name is. Because this can be easy not to do. Like sometimes, especially if we're like at a party or something and like we're being introduced to several new people at a time, it might be easy to just kind of let your brain go on a party off by itself, kind of let your mind be elsewhere when people are introducing themselves and saying who they are. But if you do that, like you're not going to remember what their names are. So just remembering what people's names are, a lot of it comes down to just like when they introduce themselves, actually be paying attention, like, okay, like this is this person's name. Like this person's name is Steve, like, or Bob or Sally. Like, and that will make you much more likely to remember their name. Also, repetition. Repetition is a good part of it. So when they introduce themselves and say what their name is, see if you can incorporate their name into the conversation, like occasionally say their name to them. With the caveat that like it's important not to overdo this. So if somebody says like, hi, my name's Steve, you don't want to be like, oh, hi, Steve, it's nice to meet you. By the way, Steve, I went to the store the other day and was thinking about what I should get. What's your favorite thing to get at the store, Steve? My favorite thing, Steve, is macaroni and cheese. But I'd like to hear what you think, Steve. So could you answer, what do you like, Steve? Like that would just be doing it too much. But there's a subtle way, a more subtle way of doing it. And sometimes that repetition can help you to remember what other people's names are. And then this should help. I think these things, what Professor Lackatax, when you say, what if you're bad with names in general? These strategies, I think, are some of the most helpful. One of them is association. So try to link the person's name to a visual or feature or similar sounding word or person. Like with my previous example, like supposing that the person's name is Steve, let's just also imagine that he has brown hair. Well, then you might think, oh, Steve, well, Steve from Minecraft also has brown hair. So maybe that's how I'll remember, is that he has a similarity in his appearance with Steve from Minecraft. That's just a quick, easy example, but like for pretty much any person, you can always link some feature of their name to some feature of how they look. And that can help often with remembering names. And just to appeal to my own experience here, not that I've always followed this strategy as much as I could or as much as I should, but I often have felt in the past like I'm not very good with names either. But being a teacher and being a professor really required me to get better at people's names, because like every semester I would have a new groups of students, new classes come in, and I would have to learn everyone's names. And eventually, the name stuck. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but I think by using strategies like these, one can sort of get the hang of people's names much faster. So if you haven't used these before, I would encourage you to give these a try. Blue Ice Cube said, I prefer people not remembering me because I'm not thinking before I speak half the time. Oh, well, maybe that's something to work on then. I don't know if Carnegie says anywhere of like think before you speak. It's kind of funny that there's no principle like that in the book. But even if you just speak purely off the cuff, purely from the heart, I like to think, Blue Ice Cubes, that most of, if not all of what you have to say are things that people would appreciate getting to hear. Now, a further way of getting people to like you, or making it more likely that you will have, a good reception in people's minds, is to be a good listener. And encourage other people to talk about themselves. Because this is something that people in general like doing too, is to talk about themselves. And the part of the book where Carnegie talks about this is just a bit later. So he notes that this is an easy way to become a good conversationalist. It's just get the other person talking about their own thoughts, their own experience. And there's a story that he writes about this, and it's, I'm just gonna see if I can adjust, okay, there we go, adjust the camera a little bit so we can see the whole thing. And it's another story about Lincoln. Everyone remembers who Abraham Lincoln is, right? This guy, just in case you need a visual reminder. Carnegie is a big fan of Lincoln. And while we're on the topic of names, my name is pronounced as Neekin. Okay, thanks, Neekin, for letting us know. So Carnegie writes, during the darkest hours of the Civil War, Lincoln wrote to an old friend out in Springfield, Illinois, asking him to come to Washington. Lincoln said he had some problems he wanted to discuss with him. The old neighbor called at the White House, and Lincoln talked to him for hours about the advisability of issuing a proclamation freeing the slaves. Lincoln went over all its arguments for and against such a move, and then read letters and newspaper articles, some denouncing him for not freeing the slaves, and others denouncing him for fear he was going to free them. After talking for hours, Lincoln shook hands with his old neighbor, said goodnight, and sent him back to Illinois without even asking for his opinion. Lincoln had done all the talking himself. That seemed to clarify his mind. He seemed to feel easier after the talk, the old friend said. Lincoln hadn't wanted advice. He had wanted merely a friendly, sympathetic listener to whom he could unburden himself. That's what we all want when we are in trouble. That is frequently all the irritated customer wants, and the dissatisfied employee, or the hurt friend. So interesting that even someone like Lincoln, someone of his stature, occasionally needed an ear, needed someone to talk to. And sometimes just being a good listener for someone can make all the difference. Robo says, all I know about Lincoln is he was a big fan of plays until suddenly he wasn't. Oh, yeah. Well, that's one way to put it, I suppose. Then Matthias says, I figured due to my Dostoevsky exception, like Russian way to pronounce Ivan is Ivan. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Interesting. You use people's names, eh? Hi, Axaeon. Oh, thanks, Komi Belladonna. See, yeah, I feel better now just reading that already. Also, good. Well, welcome to the stream. It's good to see you here with everyone else. Now, what I'd like to counsel you, chat, is that if you are wondering, how do I become a good listener? Then there are some open-ended questions that I think it helps to ask. These are just a few examples. There are plenty more that you could give, but try to ask questions that are very open in the sense that it's not just like yes or no answers, but they're questions that invite people to really talk about themselves and their thoughts on things. One of them is, and this maybe is best for like if it's someone that you already know, at least somewhat, what are you thinking about? Like if you see them staring off into the distance, you could ask them what they're thinking about. Probably don't want to do this one with someone you're just meeting for the first time. Because to me, it always has felt like kind of a personal question in a way. Like, oh no, like what if the other person doesn't want to tell me what they're thinking about? Like then it's going to be awkward. But nevertheless, I think sometimes this can be a useful question. Also, what's something you care about? This is a good one. It's not a question that we often ask each other, but sometimes just asking what's something that the other person cares about can invite a really good, useful discussion of their values, of things that are important to them. And then, what is a childhood memory that makes you smile? Because this is also something that I think people don't often get a chance to talk about, but that perhaps is something that can say a lot about a person, a lot about their experience, if there are any childhood memories they have that make them smile. Those are just 3 examples. Again, there are plenty more. But if you're finding yourself running short on questions to ask someone else, these might be some good starting points. Although Magic says, I'm going to be so real. If you ask that question to most people, they're going to think you're a serial killer. Okay. Well, maybe that could be, the start of an interesting conversation is, the other person might be, oh, like you're a serial killer. That's unexpected. What do you, what's that like? Sorry, I'm maybe going a little too far in this joke here, but yeah, I mean, I've been asked before a few times if like what I'm thinking about, and I will just say, I'm trying to think, like, did I think the other person was a serial killer? I don't remember thinking that, but maybe I did. Yeah, who knows? It's been a while. Someone would have to ask me, I guess, in the near future for me to have a better sense of how I would feel about it now. And I think that's a good point, too, that you raised, Nikin, about I feel like all that comes naturally when I'm speaking to my close friends, including smiling, active listening. It can be easier to embrace all of these when we know the people well. That makes it maybe feel a little more natural. Yeah, also interesting observation there with Blaze, because you say I always remember little things about people rather than remembering them by name, characterizing them by interactions. Like, yeah, that's probably the way we remember most people who are important to us. It's remembering features that they've shown in their interactions with us. Yeah, see, yeah, TP Ninja, I think you have a good, when you say, hey, stranger, what do you care about? It would be a real shame if something happened to it. Yes, why don't you just, yeah, you use that chat in the start of your interaction with anyone else, and I think that will make for a good, positive interaction. But yes, making sure to listen to others, to have them talk about their thoughts and experiences, but also to talk in terms of the other person's interests. So you can talk about things that the other person is interested in. And very aptly, the title that Carnegie gives this chapter is How to Interest People. So how to interest people, in short, is just like talk about things that the other person is interested in. And so for examples, like here I can think of a few examples from my life. One way that I like to work with students if I'm teaching students philosophy is to see if there are ways that I can apply philosophy to their interests. For example, maybe it's a student who's really into sports. And while I myself don't have much experience of or knowledge of or interest in sports, one thing that I can do is be like, hey, there's a whole subfield of philosophy, called philosophy of sport, and it's seen a lot of interest in recent years. And hey, maybe this is the way we could explore it. And like, what do you think about such and such issues that are related to sports, like these debates that are going on in sports? And that can be the start of a good relationship and building up rapport. I do generally avoid talking about, for example, VTubers IRL with people I know, just because I know not many people around me IRL are interested in VTubers. And so like instead I might ask them about things that they're interested in. And these could range from like medieval history to, boiling turnips or, whatever it is that the person likes. And that just, makes the conversations go well if you can sort of participate on a level that engages with the other person's interests. And even if you're not interested in whatever it is at the start, one cool thing about following this strategy is that by letting someone else talk about something they're passionate about, you can often start to better see how that subject might be interesting to you. Like maybe you start to become more interested in it yourself, just from talking about it with someone who is interested in it. And that's always like a wonderful, cool, beautiful thing to see when that can happen. Tia says, I think this segment of the discussion is giving me ideas on how I can continue to improve interpersonally. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Tia. Yeah, I think these are things we could all improve on. And so I'm delighted to know whenever like any stream of mine is helping someone to make a difference in their life. Also, there's some of the chat was moving kind of fast earlier, so I might have missed some of it, but Magic says, this is a joke. Please do not do that. Okay, yeah, what was the original comment? Go up to random people on the street and ask them about their greatest fears. Guaranteed to get good results. Yeah, Blue Eyes Gibbs likes the idea. This is an amazing idea, Magic. I'll follow you right away. It's kind of strange to think of, but I'd like to think there is a way of doing that could work. Like, for example, if I were just, let's say I was sitting in a park visiting somewhere new, and maybe I was staring out over a cliff, staring out into the vast ocean, and was just kind of reflecting on life and on philosophical questions, and there was no one else in sight until suddenly from the distance a mysterious figure came along. Maybe it's a woman with long black hair and who's dressed kind of goth, and she just has this aura to her, and like, suppose she comes and sits next to me and just says one question. She says, "What are you afraid of?" Like, I think that would be kind of cool. Like, if that were happening, I would be like, like, okay, what am I afraid of? Like, does this person have supernatural powers? Like, it seems, you know, like where's the story gonna go from here? And I think in that moment, I probably would answer honestly about things that I'm afraid of. But like outside of a context like that, yeah, it would just maybe be a little strange. Robo says, maybe this is sexist, but man, does it feel like sports are 50% of male-on-male socializing? Yeah, that's fair observation. It does seem like a go-to topic for many men when they talk to each other. Sports ball. Just put a camera in their face. Oh, yeah. I guess that was something Carnegie didn't really have to think of, is the ubiquity of cameras and smartphones, but those have added a whole new layer to interactions and to possible social blunders. This is because male socialization. Had to save this rant for the male loneliness stream because I rant on Tia's stream too much yesterday. Already, I don't need to cause another detour. Okay. All right, yeah, I look forward to that male loneliness stream then. There's a lot of interesting potential there. Sounds like death paying a visit, Axaeon. It kind of does. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell Axe and Chairman that happened. Well, okay. Well, I'll have to hear about it later then, I suppose. So chat, earlier I said there are 6 ways Carnegie proposes to be likable. We've looked at 5. Now for the final one, way 6, is to make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. So try to, not just do it in a way that comes across as flattery or like you're just saying things for the sake of going through the motions, but make clear that you really do appreciate the other person. And he puts this as, in one of his other, dramatic chapter titles, like how to make people like you instantly. This is his answer, is to make people feel important and to do it sincerely. That is how to make people like you instantly. And in this vein, he writes, there is one all-important law of human conduct. If we obey that law, we shall almost never get into trouble. In fact, that law, if obeyed, will bring us countless friends and constant happiness. But the very instant we break that law, we shall get into endless trouble. The law is this: always make the other person feel important. Professor John Dewey, as we've already noted, says that the desire to be important is the deepest urge in human nature. And Professor William James says the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. As I have already pointed out, it is the urge that differentiates us from the animals. It is the urge that has been responsible for civilization itself. Carnegie has a knack, I think, for putting things in dramatic, but I think also very fair ways, and just sentences that roll off the tongue very nicely. His writing is very easy to read, very simple, but also just well-constructed writing. So that's something I always appreciate when I get a chance to read it. So yes, making the other person feel important. And the way that I like to do this, or when I think of, okay, what are the best ways of doing this, the example that most readily comes to mind is offering sincere compliments to others. Just like directly telling them things that they've done or things that they are doing that you've really noticed and really appreciated. And I can think of, for example, when I try to think of like the most memorable times that I've done this, I think for me, it would be moments when I've gone back to teachers that I used to have, whether teachers in high school or sometimes professors in college, and have just told them, hey, you know, you really made a difference in my life. Like, you were a role model of how to be a good teacher, how to be a good professor, how to be a good human being. And I've let them know that, and without exception, they've always informed me that that meant so much to them. There was one time when I gave just a written note to a former teacher of mine from high school, and she mentioned that she would keep it in a little collection she has of notes that her students have given her. I think if you ever give a teacher anything like that, chances are that they will keep it forever. But of course, that goes for people more generally, is that when people can tell that you really appreciate them, then that makes a big, big difference to them. Like Attack says, I've noticed not a lot of scribbles in the margins. Yeah, I haven't read the entire book, just certain, but most of it I've read, or at least skimmed for today's stream. I think complimenting people in general is underrated. Positivity is a good thing. Most people don't get complimented enough. Yeah, I think that seems fair. There are quite a few people who might not even be able to remember the last time they got a compliment, which is sad. But it is a situation that many people in. And Robo says, and compliment things they had a choice in. It means more, at least in my experience, if it's about a personal choice over, say, eye color or hair color. Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like, if somebody tells me that they think I'm a good philosopher, or that, you know, they really like the way that I write things, the way that I express myself, the way that I'm a VTuber, that means more to me than just hearing that, like, they find me really attractive. Now, don't get me wrong, like, if they find me attractive, like, that's great, you know, like, I welcome that kind of thing. But yeah, knowing that it is something I had a choice in it means a bit more. And then Magic also says earlier, do not confuse this with excessive praise and people pleasing. True, yeah. For any of these, there's a risk of taking it too far or doing it in a way that feels insincere, and that is certainly something that we want to avoid. Also, TP Ninja says, unfortunately I do have to dip, so I'll see you all around. Have fun, guys. Well, thanks, TP Ninja. It was great having you in the stream. Hope you have a nice rest of the evening. I agree, people should only ever compliment me. You're right. Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but hey, I mean, maybe. I would say you deserve compliments just as much as anyone else. Blue Ice Cubes. Magic says, another thing I want to say on that point is that making someone feel important is that doesn't mean elevating them over yourself. Appreciation is better from an equal, I say. Yeah, that's a good point too, Magic. That, like, if somebody comes to me praising me and it's put in the sense of like, oh, I am not worthy, you're so much better than I am, Axaeon, that is kind of grating to me too. I think in those moments, like, don't be so servile, you know, have some self-respect. So yeah, whenever one is giving compliments or praise to another, I do think doing it in a way that suggests that they view you as an equal, that they have that same basic self-respect, I think is very important. Like Attack says, Axe, I really appreciate how you're doing embroidery so good. Okay. Oh, is this because earlier I said, like, I prefer it when people compliment things that were my choice? Yeah, I don't know if I have much experience with embroidery, but still, just reading that, you know, still makes me feel a little bit good. I'm like, hey, like, Lackatax likes my non-existent embroidery, so thank you, Professor Lackatax. Also, Thiago, welcome. I'll take notes in this stream. Good evening. Yeah, we've been going over quite a few ideas from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So always good to see you in stream, Thiago. Now, chat, oh yeah, so that's just, yeah, the example I mentioned, offering sincere compliments, I think is one of the major ways that I can think of, at least, for making the other person feel important. Axaeon from a parallel world can do embroidery. Oh, okay, a good point. Now, chat, you might remember earlier I said that, well, there are those 2 principles from Carnegie that we've been going over so far, and those are the 2 major principles. That is, avoid criticizing people you're interacting with, at least generally avoid that if you can. And if so, make sure to do it in certain very careful, very compassionate ways. And then the second one was to make people feel appreciated, make people feel important. Well, I think there's a third principle of social skills that, as far as I know, is not in Carnegie's book, but it is one that, just from my own experience, I think is very important. And so I'd like to share that with you now. And that further principle for having good social skills is that it is so important, so crucial to be comfortable with yourself. That's right. I think that's really what so much of it boils down to, is that when you stop needing to be liked by others, that makes it much easier to become liked by others. And if you're wondering what some examples of this are, I can tell you from my own life. When I was younger, like around a teenager, I was much more concerned about being liked. It mattered a lot more to me than it does now, that other people like me, that my friends like me, that the kids at school like me. And as a result of that, I was much more awkward. It showed up in my body language. It showed up in my speech, having a certain hesitation in my speech, occasional stutter, things like that. It showed up in ruminating on interactions after the fact, wondering did I do well in this interaction? Like, what did the other person think of me? Did they think that thing I said was awkward? And as a result of just having that cognitive load, just having to think about all those things all the time, I think that I was not someone who came across as a very confident person in many ways. Now, this isn't to say that I'm not sometimes awkward now. Look, I'll admit, chat, I have my moments, okay? But I have gotten better about it over the years. I've gotten better at speaking with more confidence, speaking with humor, making a good impression on others. And I think the main reason why is that now I just don't care that much if the other person likes me. That's really it. If the other person likes me, then my opinion is okay, have a nice day. I will just go on and, remain happy being myself. And just that very mindset shift has made my behavior come across much more naturally. The fact that other people's opinions matter less to me than my opinion of myself. So I can show you, here we have, I know some of you were big fans of this drawing earlier that I shared with you. That's not what I always used to look like when it came to social interactions, chat. If we try to draw what I looked like back before I gained the confidence in myself that I have now, I guess I would say I looked more like this. Here we can see me in a social situation, and maybe I'm just thinking do they like me? Does the other person like me? What if they don't? What am I going to do? Am I going to just find a way of making this other person like me? And it wasn't really a good way to exist, to go about social interactions. I wasn't quite as happy for having to have those thoughts. But fortunately, as I said earlier, I've gotten better since then. And so now all of that has been replaced. Me looking more like this, due to the mindset shift of just thinking, I don't care if they like me. That's really what it all comes down to, chat. And I realize it's easier said than done sometimes to reach this mindset, to reach this state. But to the extent that you can bring yourself to it, I would encourage you to do everything that you can to do so. Because I think that it will make your life better if you are not already here. Magic says, not caring if people like you is liberating. That is an excellent word to use. It absolutely is liberating. Granted, I've never really worried about such a thing, so I digress. Oh, well, you were ahead of the game early then, Magic. So kudos on that. Robo says, not caring is great until you realize you live in a world where that stands out and jealousy makes people do some pretty mean things. Where that stands out in jealousy. Oh, like other people will be jealous of you for your confidence, maybe? I suppose that can happen sometimes. Fortunately, it hasn't happened too much to me in my experience, but it's possible I've just been a bit lucky in that regard. Tia says, I really appreciate your sharing that about your past. Knowing how far you've come gives me hope and helps normalize and destigmatize such struggles. Oh, absolutely, Tia. I'm glad that it can do that for you. Because, yeah, like if I could make progress here, like I'd like to think like practically anyone, practically anyone can. When will we get an art stream? Oh no, what have I done? Now my viewers are asking for an art stream. It's going to be so embarrassing. Possibly at some point in the future. I would not be super opposed to doing one, Blue Ice Cubes. Yeah, if I can think of some good ideas for things to try to draw, maybe I will have to do an art stream. Iago says, having low self-esteem plus parents treating trivial activities as amazing achievements made me feel very insecure about being myself. Okay, yeah, that's also an interesting note. I can see how the low self-esteem especially, like if somebody doesn't like themselves very much, then I can see how that person would feel insecure about being themselves. And then, yeah, parents treating trivial activities as amazing achievements. I see where that's coming from too. Like if your parents are going on and on of like, hey, like this is wonderful, like this is the best thing ever, and it's just, you know, like a small little thing that you did. It's amazing. Sometimes, yeah, I think, yeah, people might feel a little embarrassed by that, or like they might say like, Mom, Dad, you're embarrassing me, you know. I hope you're feeling a little more secure in yourself now, Thiago. But to the extent that you're not, or that if there's anything that I can do to help, let me know. Also, yeah, glad, as you say, Tia, that the image helped you picture it. Because that's all I really aim for with my pictures, is that they help people visualize the stories and the points that I'm describing. And then, yeah, this is a good point too, Magic, when you say it's important to know that not caring doesn't mean being an absolute ass either. I don't care what other people think about me, but I still treat them kindly. Yeah, absolutely. That's also an important thing. Because sometimes people might try to justify being a jerk by saying like, oh, I just don't care about what others think. But really, you can not care. You can value your own opinion most of all of yourself, while still showing basic kindness and respect to others. So absolutely an important distinction. Also, current Axis aura is unbeatable in my opinion. But then again, I do have a thing for nerdy men, so oh, well, thank you, Tia. I'm glad to know my aura has made such an impression on you. And also that you include me in the category of nerdy men, because yeah, I like to think of myself as someone who has attained that state. I feel like it's not too hard to tell if someone straight up doesn't like you. Beyond that, it's a mystery. Oh, like if they just sort of like you, sort of dislike you. Yeah, it might be a little harder to tell in cases like that. I think what I was worried about when I was younger is this sense of like, what if other people are just tolerating me? You know, what if they're too nice to say anything, but really they don't like the person I am all that much? I think that's a worry that is very much a burden on many people's minds. Oh, art stream poggers. Oh, I get, now people are excited about the art stream. Okay, might actually have to do this. Axel should do an embroidery stream. The world needs to know his incredible skill. Like, I'm really going to have to like focus and get down to business if I'm going to learn embroidery. Because in my current state, I do not know anything about it. Not only I've often been the target of jealousy, even when I didn't think I was all that. So that's one thing I wouldn't fear from becoming more confident. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so knowing you're the target of others' jealousy or others' envy, sometimes that can be like a little confidence boost in a way. Like, oh, this person really thinks I'm that good that they're jealous of me. Like, oh, like thanks. Like I should I should thank them for what that says about me. So Thiago says, I improve. Thanks for caring. Oh, that's good. I'm glad to know that, Thiago, that your feelings about yourself or your feelings of security have improved. So thank you for letting me know that. He has aura? Well, yeah, I don't know if I can judge whether I have aura or not. All I can do is leave that to others. So Thiago says, yeah, explaining philosophical concepts with drawing. That's what I try to do, yeah, with thought experiments. Just always see if I can give a little visual component to them. So chat, now that we've done a basic rundown of social skills, it's time to put them to the test. Are y'all ready for this? You ready for a little test of our social skills? Well, I hope you are, because we're doing this. Chat, I'm going to present you now with certain situations that are, you might say they present us with social conundrums, social difficulties. We're going to see how the people involved should respond to those situations. And if you're wondering how I found these are going to be some videos, by the way. I think I just typed in YouTube something like difficult social situations, and I found a bunch of weird like high school projects and corporate like HR videos, which we are now going to watch. So get ready, chat. Hope you all are excited for this. So yes, here is the first one, presented to us by the Greenville Family Partnership, which I do not know what that is, but let us begin. Ooh, scenario 1.
Hey Matthew, did you finish the U Summit sign-up sheet?
No, it's a work in progress. I'll have it done this afternoon.
Okay, because I really need it done today, because people are trying to figure out how to sign up.
No, yeah, I promise. No, wait, I've got a meeting this afternoon. Tomorrow at the latest. I'll have it to you tomorrow for sure.
Okay, chat, we're going to pause here. What should Tavi do? And we have a few options. Positive peer pressure, seek help from others to help resolve the conflict, and then 3, try not to get aggressive. I like how they present these as if they're just separate options, like, oh, you have to choose one of these. Like, if she chooses positive peer pressure, that means she can't choose 3 of like, oh, now she has to be aggressive about the positive peer pressure. I suppose to be charitable, we can imagine these as overlapping. Like, you can choose to choose one or more. But what would you do, chat? If you were Tavi and you just asked this guy, I don't even know what his name is, but if you just asked him if he could get his project done on time, and he responded this way, is there an option you would choose? Would you choose the positive peer pressure? Seek help from others? Actually, 1 and 2 are kind of similar, aren't they? Because like if you use positive peer, well, I guess if maybe not if you're yourself the peer who's trying to pressure him to do the project, then I guess I can see then how one's a little different. But I was also thinking one might be like getting other friends to, encourage him to finish the project. Then, or you could, seek help from others to resolve the conflict, and then try not to get aggressive. Oh no, pop quiz. Oh no, surprise test. Yeah, that's right. Here's the exam, everybody. This is pay to win. Feel psychic damage watching these. Oh yeah, partnership of Greenville families. I'm glad you all like the acting so much. These are definitely student actors. So Blue Ice Cube says 3. My anger could never. Okay, so I see we have some support for getting aggressive. Consider the better options. Right star down. Ooh, we've got like a video game code there. Take me serious, man. I need this project. Yeah, if they were to say that, Thiago, maybe that would at least be like a firm statement. Help always helps. Well, let's see what she in fact chooses. We'll see if this if this conflict can have a good resolution.
Hey, Shyla.
Oh, hey, Tommy.
Hey, can you do me a favor and help me get Matthew to do the U Summit assignment sheet? Because I really need that today.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Thanks.
Hey, Matthew.
Hey, what's up, bud?
Hey, is there any chance you can really do that sign-in sheet for the Youth Summit today? Tommy really needs it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I probably should get it done today. I'll do it right now.
Thanks, man.
So, wait, so chat, I just have to get straight on this. She asks him to do it, and he kind of blows her off. So then she just goes to this other guy. I was like, hey, could you ask him to do it? And then suddenly he's like, yeah, I'll do it, dude. Like, what's going on in the background of here? Does this guy just not like Tavi? Is that why he blew her off, but then listened to his other friend? You gotta wonder these things. You know, I feel like there's a deeper backstory to this video that they're not telling us. And now I'm invested, and I worry chat will never get a resolution to it. You know, like, as you say, lack of tech, yeah, like the answer was to get a man to ask. is basically what this video is presenting to us. That's what Carnegie should have put in his book, you know, is if you ask a man to do something, he doesn't want to do it, and if you're a woman, then like, yeah, like just get a man to do it, basically. So now we found the secret, chat, to good social skills and strategies in these situations. Also, Magic says, oh, it's the inputs for the electric wind god fist. Okay, did not know that, but it sounds wondrous and intimidating. Yeah, maybe what that guy really needs is the electric wind god fist to, if Tavi really wanted to motivate him herself. I'm here for Axe. Oh, hello, Tyler. No, good to see you. I'm here for Axe to improve my life. Well, I hope it does. Now we're practicing applying some of the social skills that we've learned to concrete situations. Neekin says, no, this isn't realistic. I would be annoyed. Yeah. And Terradudo says, I thought 1 was the answer because 2 makes it so the problem involves other people. But okay. Yeah, I don't. If Tavi had just tried to like encourage him more herself, I don't know if that would have gotten her very far. But maybe, you know, maybe it would have. In any case, it does seem as if now we have as at least a somewhat likely possibility that this person involved in the example was just sexist, and that's why he didn't listen to her. So chat, we have another case, and I believe it involves the same actor. So if you enjoyed those actors this last time, you're going to enjoy them even more this time. We have another social conflict we're about to see. Scenario 2.
We're breaking up, Tom. Don't ever call me again.
You alright, Zoe?
Don't worry about it. It's none of your business.
I mean, I couldn't help it over here.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
What should Shiloh do, chat? Provide support, even if she does not want it. Understand she is stressed. Or 3, just leave her alone. This is a tough one, isn't it? What should Shiloh do? Like, if you were Shiloh, chat, how would you handle this interaction? I said, as a misandrist, big fan of sexism. Okay, we have some big fans of sexism here. Thought the answer was 1, misogyny rules. Oh, so Magic, yeah, feel free to go, yeah, make some tea, and hope you enjoyed the stream. That's enough psychic damage for now. It was good having you here, so thanks for tuning in. Now I'm annoyed that she isn't willing to talk to me seriously and uses my friend instead. Ooh, that's an interesting angle of it too, Neekin. Because, yeah, like in the past, whenever someone has... If someone has gone through a friend to kind of try to get me to do something, I know sometimes I found that annoying too. Though in that first example, maybe she was justified since the first friend kind of blew her off in the first place. So people on this new one are saying, yeah, mind her own business, 2 and don't bother her, 2 and 3. Yeah, actually, we have another issue here where like the options kind of overlap. Like 2 and 3 sort of go together. I like to think though that they're meant exclusively. Like if you choose 2, understand she is stressed. You can't choose 3. Now you have to not leave her alone. But you know, do it while understanding she is stressed. Or 3, if you just leave her alone, okay, now you can't understand her. Like you can't understand that she's stressed. But I think that they probably mean it as like overlapping choice. Greenville Family Productions should get an Oscar for this. Oh, definitely. This is some of the best. Like Shakespeare wrote so that these student actors could act. Tell her you're open if she needs support. Given you understand her stress, then leave. Yeah, that's a good, I think, good note too. Blue Ice Cubes. Maybe he should get a woman. That would be a nice counter to the previous one. Like, hey, this person seems to be distressed. Maybe, you know, the previous guy got a man to help with this problem. Maybe I'll just get a woman to come over here. Okay. So chat, we're going to see what he in fact chooses. So get ready.
Well, if you need anyone to talk to, I'm here.
Yeah, you're right. These past few days have been very sexual. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay, well, that was actually, you know, a pretty nice resolution. And it kind of followed, I think, what you were saying, Blue Ice Cubes, and also what other people were saying in the chat, too, about, like, you know, just, like, saying, like, hey, I'm open, like, here if you need me. But, you know, I'm not going to press it any further than that. And it sounds like she understood, too, and it was the start of a beautiful friendship, you know, or a deepened friendship between these two. The fact that they... the fact that they understood each other in this way. So that one at least, you know, had a nice happy end. And then they boned. I mean, for all we know, maybe. I wasn't getting that vibe from the end, but you never know with these things. You know, maybe that's the start of their relationship, and they go on to get married and have a beautiful story of love and hope. And it's a story of romance for the ages. Like we can't discount that. But alas, I guess we will never know for sure. So chat, get ready. One more scenario from this video. This one might be the toughest one yet.
Hey, Miss Harper said it's our turn to play with the ball.
That's crazy. We've only been playing for 5 minutes.
Oh, just come on and just give us the ball. It's our turn.
No, keep playing. Keep playing.
What should Tavi and Zora do? Ask for help from the teacher, try to share, or make a deal. Ooh, no, this is so hard, chat. What should they do? Have you ever been in this situation, chat? You know, like you're playing with a ball with someone and then your 2 friends come up and they're like, hey, we want to play too. Or maybe you come up to friends who are playing with the ball and then they don't want to share. It's super awkward, isn't it? I don't know if Carnegie ever talks about situations like this, but if we were to apply his principles. Apis 3, make a deal with the devil. Oh, the deal with the devil was like, hey, Satan, if you give me their ball, then like you can have my soul. Man, I guess that would be effective at getting what you wanted, but might have some side effects that you might not end up liking. 2, some people in the chat are saying 2, try to share. Yeah, trying to share, that would have the advantage maybe of like they can all play together. So like everyone maybe gets to have their preferences satisfied. Tylenol says 1, ask for help from the teacher. And that might help too. Like maybe the teacher could tell them like, hey, look, when somebody asks you to, asks if you might let them have a turn, you know, you should do that. Maybe they'll listen to the teacher. Maybe that changes their thinking for the better. To a square or like a cross pattern. Yeah, I guess if they choose option 2, that's a way they could share. Yes, this is a sitch that is super common in my adult life. Well, I'm glad we could watch this video together then, like attacks. Yes, this is such a super kids act like throwing the ball with 4 people is hard. Yeah, it's really not that hard to just, you know, have it be like a square pattern. Oh, Lack Attack says 3, I'm going to be a contrarian, make a deal. I guess the deal could be like, hey, like you can play for like a few more minutes, and then like we get to play for a few minutes. They could take turns that way. But we'll see what they in fact do. All right, so let's see what their actual choice is.
You guys, what if we just all play together?
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so chat, that was what they actually chose. They followed those of you who are saying that they should just share. We can see now that that was the choice that they arrived at. Except for sorry, I just got a note saying OBS disconnected, reconnecting. Can everyone still hear me? Okay, reconnection successful. All right. Hope everyone can still hear me, but anyway. Yeah, I like your thought, Tyro, steal the ball and leave. That's okay, great, thanks, good. I see people saying they can hear me. That's good. Yeah, if they stole the ball and left, I mean, that would be making a statement, you know, asserting their will, but might make some enemies in the process. Thiago, oh, that's interesting, Thiago. You say, those scenarios made me realize that in situations of conflict, I tend to go away and avoid conflict. I see. So you would not choose Tyler Null's option of stealing the ball and leaving. Or maybe even the option of proposing to share. Maybe you would just walk away. And that's something I think I've done many times in the past too. I think usually, or maybe not usually, but often in cases like that too, I will just kind of, it's like, okay, like these people are going to do things the way they want, and I'll just kind of exit the interaction. And I will say, like for very low stakes interactions like the previous one, I probably wouldn't do that. But when the stakes are higher, like when it feels like there might be potential for real conflict, or if there's potential that the other person might be dangerous, then like that is always my default. That is always my go-to, is to just try to, you know, leave the interaction as quickly as I can. So chat, I think that first one, that was a good warm-up. But there's something else. This one involves a bit of a different social circumstance. I'm wondering if we can make sense of this one. Here's a separate video. Also has some really good acting. I think this one is college students and not high school students. So the acting for this one, chat, it's going to be so much better. You'll see. Okay, chat. What do you think? Or actually, maybe I'll go back and just to remind ourselves of the situation. What would you do in this situation if you were the girl? Or if you were the guy, for that matter? Like, you know. Who does that? Why would you do that? So I see people have some strong reactions to the behavior being shown here. More Greenville family productions. Yeah, I don't think this one's the Greenville family production. This is like the next stage in the evolution of Greenville family production. This is what the Greenville family productions kids go on to graduate to once they get to college. This is making me wonder if my expectations of people are so low because the cousin I grew up with was a psychopath. He'd do the antisocial thing on purpose because he found it funny, like not sharing. Oh, sorry to, yeah, that's unfortunate, Tia. But yeah, I guess compared to that, maybe the behaviors in these videos don't seem that bad by comparison. Yeah. I like people's brand. Yeah, why would you do that? Zero says, what the fuck? Who does that? I would be so uncomfortable being either of them right now. Now, okay, we have a solution here. Tia says, I would move, probably. I mean, that's, yeah, one solution. You could just get up and go somewhere else. That one's probably the least likely to create conflict, I suppose. Robo, I think he's bad at flirting. Oh, yeah, maybe this is like an awkward attempt to flirt. And maybe he's just bad at it. You never know. Like, guys have made some pretty rough, awkward passes before, and maybe this is just one of them. Can I have your number? Seems like the next move. Wait, Thiago, is that for the girl or the guy? Like, the girl should ask, can I have your number? Oh, I see. Like, maybe she turns it around on him. She's like, hey, this guy's maybe trying to flirt with me in this really awkward way. I'm going to see if I can like get him flustered by like turning it around and being like, hey, can I have your number? And then maybe he'll just like feel awkward and leave. Or maybe the can I have your number was meant as like something that he should ask her. Yeah. In my view, not that, and I know your comment is meant as a joke, but to anyone who is actually wondering, or who actually would wonder that, I would say, yeah, that would be a little bit fast. Can I have someone's number eventually, maybe, but not right after you meet them, and especially not if like you meet them in an annoying way, like a way that they are visibly uncomfortable with. Dude, he's quite creepy. Low-key, the table distribution is kind of trolling. Oh yeah, I guess that it doesn't seem like there are that many tables in the room, so that makes it maybe a little more understandable. So Tylenol says he's flirting. Okay, we have a few comments in the chat saying people that he's flirting. Like 2 days ago, a guy in an empty classroom with like tons of free seats sat right behind me. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah, when there's lots of free seats and the person just kind of gets up close to you. I hate that too. The girl used the number to turn him into the police. I mean, I don't think the police are going to come just because this guy was being annoying and sat next to her. But Mom, maybe if it's like a really slow day for the police and they don't have anything else to do, I would make him super uncomfortable. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is also a good way to put it. Yeah, Thiago says, if you're dealing with a crazy person, double the craziness to out-crazy the crazy. The only problem with moving, I fear, is it might reinforce he can get away with such behavior. Okay. So yeah, I guess that raises the question of, if we're going to try to hold this guy to account, like how might we do so? Well, if he could read body language of a rabid dog, he could see she's uncomfortable. Reading nonverbal social cues is important. Yeah, it seems like maybe this guy is someone who has trouble with social cues. Why are there 4 tables? Yeah, it is kind of just awkward table placement. I don't know what's going on in that room. Never flirt like this. True, there are much better ways. Carnegie could give us some better ways of flirting. Just let a fat one rip. Hey, if it works, you know. Now, sadly, chat, I don't think that this one gives us a resolution to it. It doesn't tell us how the girl in fact reacts. We just have to imagine it for ourselves. But you know what? I think this is maybe just part of my weirdness. Not many people would do this, but I think if it were me, if I were the girl and I were kind of, you know, annoyed with him, I think what I would say is something like, hey, I can see that you have some things you're studying, you know, and I might not be opposed to getting to know you in some other context, but to be honest, the way that you're just sitting here right next to me and getting up in my space with your things is a bit annoying. I wonder if you might move elsewhere. And then, you know, seeing what he says in response to that. I think I would try to be reasonably diplomatic about it. And then, like, if I run into this guy later, you know, it might turn out maybe he's, you know, a better, more interesting person than he seems on this first impression. Like, I don't want to write him off entirely. And if he is trying to flirt with me, you know, maybe it took a certain courage for him to come up next to me, even though it was, you know, done very awkwardly and poorly. So I think I would try to be as understanding as I can, but also firmly assert my own preferences and see if I might strike a balance there. Axe recites essay. My inner philosopher comes out again. Help, I was thinking that. Oh, okay, blue ice cubes. It sounds like we understand each other pretty well then. Great minds think alike. Well, here's another scenario that they give chat involving the same actors. Or this next one involves the guy on the right, whom we didn't get to see much of in the previous video. So this scenario, I think, is called, manners.
Yeah, we can, yeah. It's fine.
Thank you.
Sure. Hey, hold the door. I got it, okay?
Wow, what a Chad. Chat, I'm stunned. I think that is the most Chadish maneuver I've ever seen. When like a guy's holding the door for you, but you take over holding the door for him and then like wave him in. You're like, you're not gonna hold the door for me, dude. I'm gonna hold it for you. Yeah, like chat, there was no question about who the boss was in that interaction. It's like we were talking about flirting earlier. Like if you do this in front of someone that you want to flirt with, then like that is a way of asserting dominance to that person. Like there's no question that you are now the alpha, now and forevermore. Tia says, yeah, IDK, there are a lot of people who communicate. Oh, I don't know that there are a lot of people who communicate like X. Oh, thanks. Well, I like to think I'm distinctive. What a polite gentleman. Ooh, as a bi man, that's flirting. Okay, so we have some distinctive insight here from Robo. Thanks for sharing that, Robo. Wow, so true, so chivalrous. What a gentleman. Take my Reddit gold. He probably is a Redditor, you know. Maybe with a bit of Discord mod on the side. Just needs to bring in some of the classic fashion and, you know, maybe get a fedora or a trilby and he'll have the look complete. So yeah, I really don't have anything to say about that first interaction. That was just, you know, I think that one speaks for itself, chat. But there's one more from this video. And this one's called Eye Contact.
They eat so much every day, and I mean, which makes sense because they're like animals, you know, but it was really cool. It was a great experience. I think actually the walrus is now like my favorite animal, you know. But yeah, walruses they're really cool. I mean, I knew a little bit about them before. My grandfather had a bad run-in with them in Alaska one time. Yeah, he actually died that way. But it's they're awesome. They're majestic creatures.
Okay, why don't we just pause there for a bit. So, thoughts on this interaction, chat? Is there anything that you would say about what has just transpired? So people are saying, why is he not moving? Just say something. What is she talking about? Well, she's talking about walruses, I suppose. That seems to be the topic of conversation. But yeah, my view on this is that even though she seems to feel that she's being awkward, like she seems to be feeling really hard on herself about it, I think actually she is doing fine in this interaction. It's the guy. It's him.
But still, I knew a little.
Like just the fact that he's not really contributing anything to this conversation. He's just kind of looking at her in this strange way. He is not following the example set by Dale Carnegie. Like, he could be asking her all kinds of follow-up questions now about, like, oh, well, what is it about walruses that makes you interested in them? Or, like, do you have a favorite walrus fact or, you know, walrus memory? There's lots of cool places this conversation could go. Also, just because it's not, like, a usual topic of conversation. So I think the fact that the girl here is, you know, having the courage to, like, describe one of her sort of unusual interests in this way, and the dude is just not, you know, giving her anything to work with. I think really, like, he's the one who is not showing good social skills here. Even though, like, sadly, like, she's probably the one who feels like, oh, like, my social skills must be so bad because this guy's not engaging with me. Like, no, I would tell her, like, no, like, you're doing great. Like, this other guy is just kind of a weird weirdo, maybe a little bit of a jerk about it. You can't just drop your grandfather was killed by wars and not explain. Yeah, I would definitely, like, if I were him, I would definitely ask a follow-up question about that. Lacatek says, I feel like she wants him. Oh, well. Maybe so, you know. Mostly I think she's just feeling really bad about herself in this moment, but I guess if she is attracted to him, maybe that's making her feel even worse. Tylenol says she is in the fault. Okay, I'd be curious to know why you think that, Tylenol, because it seems to me like she's doing great, and I don't know why he's not engaging with her. Nope, I take that back. They were both high. He's high. Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe they got high before they did this video project or what have you. T says, I agree, he looks judgmental. Yeah, he really does. Like, I don't know why he has such a chip on his shoulder. Feel a bit ableist now that I realize I've kind of been laughing at people bad at picking up social kills cues. No worry, Apa. No worries about that. Because, I mean, I think all of us, to some extent, can improve in this. So, in a way, we are laughing at ourselves. You know, some people insist on retaining constant eye contact. Oh, because of the walrus and not explaining the story. Well, I mean, normally, like, if you were asking follow-up questions and, like, showing some kind of engagement, but then she didn't explain the story, then I agree she would be in the wrong. But the fact that she doesn't follow up, I think, is easily explained just by the fact that he's not, like, reacting at all. Like, I know I wouldn't follow up with more explanations if somebody was just giving me a cold stare like that. It's a very neurodivergent combo. Like, how much eye contact are we supposed to make? Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a matter of, like, every couple of seconds, like every 5 or so seconds, I might look, you know, somewhere else for a bit and then go back to eye contact. Also, chat, if you ever feel awkward making eye contact, one thing you can try to do is, instead of looking directly into their eyes, look at the space between their eyes, like just at the top of kind of the bridge of their nose area. And sometimes people have reported finding that a little bit easier. So chat, we've done a great job so far on these social skills scenarios. So much so that I think we are almost fully prepared to go venture out into the world and be social ourselves. There is, however, one more, and this I think is the toughest one of all. One more conflict scenario that I have to present to you, chat. So get ready, chat. This one, it's a little bit scarier. Involves a bit higher stakes than the previous one. But I think you can do it, chat. I think we're here. I think we're ready for this. So now I will share. This involves a workplace conflict. And it's different actors than the previous. These are not high school students or even college students. I think these ones are actual adults. So the acting might be a little different. Probably better, but maybe not. We shall see.
Now what am I supposed to do? I was counting on you to finish this up.
You should have finished it yourself. You're single. I have 2 little ones to take care of at home. You know how crazy my schedule is.
I'm tired of always having to do your work.
Hey, calm down. What's the problem here?
Well, you were standing there, you heard. Rachel didn't finish her half of the project, and now we're going to miss our deadline.
Amy, you know I have kids, and it's difficult for me to work in the evenings.
Rachel, how close are you to finishing the work?
I'm sure it can be finished by Friday.
Great, Friday is 2 days too late. That means we miss our bonus, and I was really counting on that money. This is your fault. You assigned her to this. I can't believe you got promoted to project manager over me.
Wow. Rachel, I trusted you.
None of you understand how hard it is being a working mom.
Okay, chat. That was part 1 of the video. Now, there is a part 2, which we see how the conflict wraps up. But first, I just have to hear, whose side do you take, chat? We have some heightened workplace drama here. Absolute cinema. I'm with the man. Okay, so we have at least one person taking the dude side. I think Shane maybe is his name. So Frobo says, maybe not there, but just stare back and slowly lick your lips. They'll stop. Oh yeah, well that's a way of getting someone to stop being in a conversation with you, yeah. Karis is VOD in the sidebar. Oh yes. The algorithm knows knows that I'm a Karis viewer. I side with the man as for now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that one thing he could say in his defense is that even while it's true that the other person has apparently significant family responsibilities, there's perhaps a certain unfairness in the fact that that's now his problem. Like he could say, well, look, if you know that you're in this, you know, you have kids and so on, shouldn't you budget your time accordingly? which is a bit harsh, but it does seem like this is something we generally expect people to do, is to manage their work obligations and their family obligations in such a way that like if they don't manage to do that, and if it starts affecting their coworkers, then like we generally recognize that there's something unfair to the coworkers on that, even if it's understandable in a way that they're having trouble getting everything done on time. But yeah, in just a second we'll see if they can find an amicable resolution to this. Blue Ice Cube says, being completely workplace oriented, I have to take the guy's side. The mother, although she has responsibilities, should know how to balance her work and home life. Any fault is hers. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with that. Tia says, I don't feel like we have enough context to judge, which I think is also a valuable comment, because we've only seen just like a minute of the conversation. And to the extent that we make any judgment at all, which maybe we shouldn't, it should, of course, be very tentative. So yeah, perhaps we don't have enough context to judge. Certainly if I were in this situation as their supervisor, I would want to hear more from each of them before I arrived at any kind of decision myself. Like a Texas, the woman, I'm an inexplicable feminist. I see. That must be why you like Karis so much. Karis's streams. He was rude for making it about money. His greed led him to abusing his coworkers. Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, the guy was very blunt about it, kind of rude. He does seem... I mean, to be fair, I guess we don't know why he needs the bonus so much. It might probably not be like a really important reason. But yeah, he does seem to be maybe not the most tactful in the way that he puts things. So Chad, if you want to see the thrilling conclusion, just fire them both. He's blunt but not corrupt. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, Tylenol, you always have a good knack for the extreme solutions. You're a straight shooter in that way. Legit, though, first joined Karis when he covered Finmas. Okay, I didn't know that, Lucky Tex. But I guess, yeah, that does make sense then. So chat, here is the thrilling conclusion. We shall see how it transpires.
Okay, I know it's been a couple of hours since the situation occurred between the two of you, but I'd like to see if we can get this resolved. First off, I'd like to hear from each of you about what's going on with the project.
Well, Amy, as you know, I have kids at home, and it's almost impossible for me to work in the evenings. This project workload was just too much for me to finish with all my other responsibilities here. I'm going to get it done, just not by Wednesday.
Okay, Justin, go ahead. How do you see this?
You heard. She's not going to be done by Wednesday. That means we missed the bonus, and I really needed that money.
So, it sounds to me like the heart of the conflict is getting the project finished by Wednesday and getting the bonus. Do you both agree?
Yeah.
Yes, I guess so.
Do you have any ideas about how the two of you might finish this project by Wednesday?
Well, Justin can help me with what I have left to do.
That's not fair. I shouldn't have to do your work. I'm gonna be busy finishing up my end, and besides, if I had time to do your half, I already would have.
Right, Justin. I know you're still playing hockey after work. I saw you leave with all your gear yesterday. There are things you don't want to give up too.
Okay, I have a suggestion. Rachel, can you delegate your other office responsibilities and just focus on this project? And Justin, I know how important hockey is to you, but could you maybe skip one practice and work on this with Rachel? And could the both of you maybe put in an extra hour after work tomorrow to finish?
Well, I guess I can let Mary handle the Keller account. And I think my mom can watch the kids for an hour. I can do it. I know it's really important to Justin.
I guess if Rachel is going to stay tomorrow, I can ditch hockey for a night. It would be really nice to get this done by Wednesday. I'm sorry I got so upset, Rachel. I could just really use that bonus.
Actually, I can use that bonus too. Don't kid yourself. I just didn't know how we can make it happen. Thanks, Amy.
All right, it sounds like we have a plan of action. If there's anything I can do to help the two of you in any way, let me know. Thank you both. Let's get back to work.
Okay, chat. So we have this is how the story ends. They managed to find a solution. They're just both going to stay over a little bit and work a little bit extra. So, what do you think? Is this a good resolution? Is this how you would resolve it? Or is this how you would hope it gets resolved? Nikan says he was rude, and I'm sure he should have been more polite, but in workplace, everything is about money. Yeah, it seems like he himself has that recognition later that he should have been more polite, because he does apologize to her, which I think is a good thing. Had it been about performance and not his bonus, would have been way more professional. True, yeah, he could have framed it that way. Happy to be a help. Are they getting paid for overtime? So that was my main question when I saw this resolution to the video title and all. I thought, well, wait a minute, if they're like staying extra, shouldn't they be getting paid overtime? Because if they're not, then it still seems like there's a bit of unfairness here. But if they're getting paid overtime, then I think that does help quite a bit. Wow, HR is helpful. Diplomatic approach, very much so. Nikan says, man still has to work more and help a woman just because he is a male. Well, I don't know if it's just because he is a male. Like, if he were a woman, maybe the interaction would have played out the same, or the suggested solution would have played out the same. But, like, I do agree, if he has to work extra, but, like, is not getting paid overtime for it, then it does seem to me it's a little unfair to him. But if he's getting paid extra accordingly, then I think that would go a long way toward resolving the unfairness. Apa says, I may have forgot some context, but if they're late because of her and he still have to work extra hours because of it, I feel like it may be a little unfair. Yeah, I think so too. I think really what it all comes down to is if there is extra payment for those extra hours, and if the extra payment is sufficient to satisfy him, if he's happy with that, if it makes him feel like, okay, like this is something I'm willing to accept as a bonus for this extra work. But yeah, to the extent that it falls short of that, then I think it still does seem like he's having to kind of sacrifice his schedule for his coworkers' decisions. Like, you know, her problems are becoming his problems. So if there's not the monetary compensation for that, then yeah, I would agree there's unfairness. Yeah, it's more, I think that's a good way of putting it, Robo, when you say it's more he's on her team and less that he's a man in that situation. And then, yeah, as you put it too, Tylenol, I think it's more because he wants that bonus. So boss sees him as willing to do that extra work at, yeah, okay. The best solution still. Yeah, this might be a case where there's no perfect solution, but maybe this is the best one. It's misogyny o'clock. I don't know if I have any follow-up comments to that one, but I think for some reason I think Karis would like that comment. Tia says, I think something we often don't consider in situations like these is that childcare is an unsung boon to society. Yeah, I like that you brought that up, Tia, because it does seem right that people who have and raise children are helping, you know, the next generation come along, and that is something that's important. And so I think that's part of the reason why one could argue for what's the way for certain childcare provisions that like maternity leave and things like that workplaces should offer those accommodations to the extent that they can, or perhaps they should be, you know, required by law, simply in order to make it more feasible for people who have kids to work. Like, that seems very plausible to me. Axaeon knows ball for real. Oh, thank you, Zero. If everyone were single and childless, productivity would go up till there's no one left to be productive. True, and that would be a sad state of affairs. So chat, again, you've done a great job with these, so thank you all. I think now we're prepared to face pretty much any social situation. Now we know all of the fundamentals. But I will say, as you go about thinking of social situations and reflecting on other social encounters that you'll go on to have, I hope you will keep in mind this, that your social skills do not determine your value as a person. if you have an awkward moment, it's okay. Know that I will still like you and respect you. And also, even if I didn't, so even if I did not like you or respect you at all, that wouldn't matter. What would matter is that you'd still be just as worthy of being liked and respected. So go out there, chat, and kick some ass in your social interactions. I want you to go forth with a newfound sense of confidence in your ability to handle whatever social situations life throws at you. Because I believe in you, chat. Even if some of you don't really believe in yourselves. Like you, Zero, I see now, he says, yes, they do. It means I suck and am worthless. Zero, I disagree. I could never bring myself to think that you were worthless. Tylenol says, did I pass? Yes, yeah, you all passed. You all passed with flying colors. You all passed the social skills pop quiz, pop exam. Blue Ice Cube says, I hope I get an A+. Well, then you are in luck, Blue Ice Cubes, because you did get an A+. A++++. A+ is for everyone. Only Axe would make social skills lecture take as long as spooky philosophy. True. I am good at yapping when I put my heart into it, I suppose. Be on a roll, here I come again. Yep. I'm proud of you all, you know? You stuck with it, and we put our skills to the test. So what I want you to do, chat, is if you have any moments that later that you think, hey, like I did really well in that social interaction, let me know, okay? It could be in a future stream, or like you could leave it under a comment under this VOD. But like if anyone does actually have any moments where they think like, hey, I was able to use one of those principles that Axaeon went over, like I would be absolutely thrilled to hear that. You don't have to let me know, of course, but I'm just saying I would be delighted if you did. We successfully socialized today. That's right, Terraditto. And you can be proud of yourself for it. In seriousness, thanks for doing this. Oh, thank you, Tia. Thank you for being here. I certainly enjoyed today's stream. I learned one thing today, one thing only: glaze the other person to no end. Well, yes, but do it sincerely. Which maybe does require having an end at some point, but more or less, you're on the right track there, I would say, Blue Ice Cubes. Thank you for today's stream. Yeah, no, it was great having you here, Zero, and everyone else. So, chat, that is all for right now. On Friday, I will be streaming more Minds Beneath Us, if everyone has not forgotten the story to that game yet. But don't worry, I'll give a recap at the start of it for anyone who wants to catch up, and maybe streaming it on Saturday again as well. But otherwise, that is all for now. So thank you again. I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everyone.